Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Hey, Susie, welcome. Welcome to Susie from Minnesota. Hey. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another live stream. We did one just yesterday showing Adam's really cool 1954. I had to think about that. 1954 Husqvarna. So it's been a busy, busy couple of days. Really a busy couple of days. Let me get some. Oh, Susie is having some internet issues, it looks like. Sorry about that. Yeah, technology is a hit and miss thing, isn't it? It's just a hit and miss thing all the time. But if you would, those of you that already have stepped into the live chat, if you would give me feedback on video quality and audio quality. And I'm also curious if you were able to, at the intro, hear any music. I think I'm going to have to get this Razer mixer thing, but just curious if any of the music kind of piped through during the intro of the live stream. So let me know. Let me know, please. And hopefully Susie's internet holds out. I just realized I haven't cleaned the lens of this camera for a while, so I'm going to do that real quick. You're going to see a little spritz here real quick on the screen. Ah, I probably shouldn't be using Kleenex to wipe off the lens because Kleenex are pretty abrasive, aren't they? Now, Susie, you're not able to. You don't have a picture, Susie. You're not able to see anything. Emma, are you able to? I'm assuming you can see the 301 in the shot right now. Is your video working, Emma? So Emma can see it. Susie, there must be something wrong with. Try rebooting. Try rebooting or closing out the live stream and open it back up again and see whether or not that helps resolve the issue with your visual, your video part. I'm hoping it will. So a little bit about yeah, let's go like this. A little bit about this machine. Bill Bradley is out of Minnesota, and he and I started talking originally about me preparing two 301s or 301As for his daughter and for his wife so that the two of them could sew side by side. It ended up that we were only able to secure one. And I'm going to be doing a live stream on this today, so you can see Bill Bradley's 301A, and then I'll get this shipped off to Minnesota. Minnesota is not too far away, and even during the holidays, it should only be a travel time of, you know, less than 5 days, probably 2 to 3 days. It'll be arriving there, so that they hopefully can bring in the new year and celebrate this machine as a belated holiday Christmas type gift for the family. I don't know how the mother and the daughter are going to share this one machine, but I'll let them figure that out. I just did my part to get the machine ready. So let's take a look at this machine a little bit. I'll walk you around it a little bit. And then I also am going to ask you some questions about the history of this machine. So get ready with your pencils and paper for class so that you can learn more about this great machine that was made in Anderson, South Carolina. Okay, quick little walk around. Oh, and good morning to, I've already said good morning to Susie and to Emma. Good morning to Beth. Beth works as well. Beth works. Okay, good. Beth is not having any difficulty seeing or hearing me, which is great. And my 5G network, which is provided by T-Mobile, has had ups and downs as well, just like Susie's internet. And but right now, at least today, I always run a speed test before I get the live stream rolling. And at least for today, the 5G network here in Oconto, and the tower is only about a mile away from the workshop. It is racing like a jackrabbit. What I depend on to do live streams like this is not the download. Everyone talks about download, right? Everyone talks about, well, my download speed is this or my download speed is that. Download means nothing when it comes to live streaming. It's all about the upload speed. So you basically have one track on the internet that downloads stuff. You know, you might be trying to open up an app or open up a document or whatever. The other one is the upstream, the upload, and I depend on the upload. And the upload today, and for some of you, this might not be impressive. Some of you might have crazy fast internets. Even our folks over in Europe, like yesterday when we did the live stream with Adam and his Husqvarna that was shipped from London, England. I have no doubt at all that their speeds over in Europe are probably about a gigabit, which is super crazy. Wow, off the charts fast. But the upload for me today to make sure that I was ready to do this live stream for Bill Bradley's machine came in at about 35. 35 is pretty doggone fast for an upload. And so hopefully we do great. Hopefully you can see everything that I want to show you. You can hear everything, and it's a great live stream as we've been having them. So let me also say good morning to Aaron Allen. Aaron Allen, my good friend that I recently had a chance to do some work on a Japanese machine for her and then ship it back to her. And previously, I believe I lose track, you guys. I handle so many machines, and but I remember also preparing another machine for Aaron as well. I want to say it was a 201-2, but that was a couple of years ago at least. But it's great to have all of you here. It's great to have all of you join the live stream on what probably is a busy Wednesday morning. And my Wednesday morning, as I shared with a couple of folks, my Wednesday morning was trying not to freeze as I was moving around outside. Our temperature today in Oconto this morning was right around -4, right around -4. So if you're watching this in a much warmer place and you're going, I can't even imagine surviving with temperatures in the negatives. That's like living on the surface of the moon. You get used to it. You get used to it. It's just like when you move from a cold climate to a much warmer climate like Arizona or Florida or California, and you have to adapt to the warmer temperatures. You do the same thing in reverse when it comes to the colder temperatures. So I'm doing okay. It's actually surprisingly warm down in the workshop, warmer than it usually is. Warm at least for me. But if I were to do a temp on this machine right now, we might be surprised what the temp is. Let me do that real quick just for fun. So if you've never seen one of these, this is an infrared thermometer, infrared thermometer. So if I get a temp, say, of the faceplate right here, what are we going to see? Yeah, that's actually pretty good. So I'm getting a temp on the faceplate right now of right around 64, almost 65 degrees. Some of you have watched live streams and videos where it was like 50 some degrees down in the workshop. So 64, boy, I could almost put my shorts on and my flip flops today. It's pretty doggone warm. Yeah, it's pretty warm down here. So all right, well, let's get a quick walk around. Let's get a quick walk around on this 301A. Does anyone know what? Oh, you're working on your SAMB case right now. How cool, Aaron. Very cool. Yeah, Aaron said she didn't want to send that case because it was kind of a stinky case. And it had kind of an odor to it. So I guess she's kind of tidying that up a little bit so she can put that really cool Japanese machine in there. Good morning also to Candido Rivera. Candido Rivera has also just joined us. It's great to have you here. So a quick walk around this machine. But what I was going to ask you first is, does anyone know when the 301A was first introduced? Or if you want to share about the 301, that would be fine too. And I don't know if Emma wants to kind of hold back a little bit. Emma oftentimes will jump in and share the information straight away. Hey, good morning, Thalia. Thalia is out in Missouri. Thalia is out in Missouri, and I recently had the privilege, many of you that follow things on Facebook and on YouTube regularly know that I prepared a very, very special featherweight for her, a very special featherweight. And the big news about what's happening out in Missouri right now, out by Thalia, is she is building an incredible quilting shop. It's going to have, I think, a woodworking shop in it and a bunch of other things. I need to make a trip out to Missouri once everything is settled and she's got her shop up and running. And I would love to do a live stream or at least shoot a video out there and maybe get the nickel tour of this brand new place where she's going to be creating gorgeous quilts, probably teaching classes as well and doing all kinds of other fun stuff like that. Okay, so let's just call Candido instead of Candido Rivera. Yeah, okay. So at any rate, a lot of exciting things happening out there. It sounds like Thalia has also been battling a little bit of the flu bug out there, as most of us are around the country. The flu bugs are just horrible right now. And that is a major obstacle, isn't it? Yeah, it is easier, Candido. Thank you. Thank you very much. So Beth had tossed a guess out there as far as when did the 301A come on the scene, and she said 1955. She's really, really close. It was actually right around 1953. Right around 1953 is when it started producing these 301As at the Anderson, South Carolina plant, which is why there's an A on the bottom of the badge mark. You can see 301A right there. The other thing that Singer started doing, if you didn't know this, is they would oftentimes have the models stamped somewhere. They sometimes would stamp the model up here, right near the stitch length controller. They would put the model number different places on the machines. But it was right around 1953 that they started adding these specific secondary badge marks below the main badge mark, and they would start putting the model number on those in 1953. So this particular machine came on the scene right at the very beginning of that rollout of the 301A at the Anderson, South Carolina plant. Does anyone know what machine just preceded this one and where it was made? Anyone know the answer to that? In other words, there was a model before the 301A and it was made somewhere else entirely. Any guesses as to what that is and what year that was made? Set the camera down a little bit, take a look at the live chat. And Susie is saying, what about the Spartan, the 192K? It was not the Spartan that preceded it. I'm kind of looking for the sister of the 301A, the sister of the 301A, a model that just preceded the 301A. And this particular model that preceded the 301A was only in production for 1 year, only 1 year. So that makes it a little bit trickier, doesn't it? And Candido is saying loves the look of this machine. It is a gorgeous machine, isn't it? But prefers the ebony, the black model. And also when you're going with these 301s and 301As, you either can have a long bed like this, or you can have a short bed that only comes to about here. And there are different camps as well. Some people don't care. They don't care if the bed is long or short, but there are some others that they're absolutely definite about wanting a black one and wanting to have that long bed to extend their workspace a little bit more. And I'm not thinking of the 221 either. The 221 was produced way before the 301 or 301A. The model that I'm thinking about is actually the 301. The 301 was first introduced right around 1951. It was called the Grand Introduction. The Grand Introduction. And right around 1951, and then it really became available to the public around 1952. So it would be identical to this machine that we're looking at right here. The only difference is right down here, it would only say 301. It would not say 301A. And that particular model that preceded this one, again, it was starting to roll out in 1951, and then it ultimately was really made available to the public in 1952. That particular one also ended production the very same year. They started to make it in Elizabethport, New Jersey, and then they shut down production there almost straight away, and they opened up production introducing the 301A right around 1953. Does anyone know how long? Again, the one that preceded the model we're looking at right here, the one that preceded this model was the 301. Does anyone know how long this one was in production? We know the 301 was only in production for basically 1 year, from 1951 to 1952. How long did they produce this one, the 301A, at that Anderson, South Carolina plant? How long did they produce this one? While you're thinking about that question, I'm going to walk you around this machine a little bit. So over on this side of the machine first, for bobbin winding, you're going to put your spool of thread right here. You're going to run it right through this thread tensioner, and don't make a loop, just kind of come underneath and then come straight up to your bobbin winder. The bobbin winder on these machines is really kind of cool. It tucks right into the body of the machine so that it's not sticking out prominently. It's kind of concealed a little bit almost, isn't it? And when you need it, you put your bobbin on here after you run the thread from here to here, and then you just rotate it up to the rim of the balance wheel. And obviously disengage your clutch as well. Disengage your clutch. And it winds bobbins so efficiently and so beautifully. And if you have a similar machine like this, and you go to put your bobbin on the mounting point right here, and the bobbin is loose, and it kind of doesn't really grip that output shaft very well, right on the inside, if you look really carefully, you might be able to see it. there's little cut-in points, there's little flare points on the end of this mounting post for the bobbin winder. You can, if you do it very carefully, slide a screwdriver into the end of this and very, very gently expand this just slightly if your bobbins are not seating on here nice and tight. And then what it'll do is it'll allow that bobbin to grip that shaft much better, and it won't be slipping when you're trying to wind the bobbin. So, but again, you have to do it very carefully. This is a very light gauge metal, but you can, if you're careful, just slide a real thin screwdriver in there very gently, or you could put a screwdriver on the end and just very gently tap it in, just to expand that ever so slightly. It doesn't have to be much. Less than a thousandth of an inch probably will do. And then your bobbins will not fit on there loosey-goosey and slip when you're trying to wind them. Does anyone know what this thing is for right here? This point right here? What does that do? Any of my real knowledgeable folks, what does that do, and how do you potentially use this in relation to bobbin winding? I'm going to look at the live chat, see what you folks have written. But tell me about this thing right here. I've explained this before, but I haven't explained it for a while. So I'm going to let you again become a fellow teacher and share your knowledge as to what this does and how you use it in relation to winding a bobbin on this 301A. Okay? Yeah, Emma is correct. And as Susie had written down, 12 years is the guess. There are many people that wish that they had produced the 301As for 12 years. That would have been fabulous, because this was actually, the 301 was actually the very first Slant-O-Matic, that was introduced by Singer. And that's why they referred to that period with the 301, 301A as the grand introduction, where all of a sudden they were introducing a machine that no longer needed a belt. And also because of the design of the needle bar being on an angle, gave you really, really nice visibility down at the needle. Because of the needle bar being tilted out, it actually sews like that. You're able to see those stitches being laid down much quicker than a needle bar that just goes up and down. So it was really an exciting time for Singer, introducing the very first Slant-O-Matic right around 1951, as they were beginning to roll into the Slant-O-Matic series. Yeah, and Emma is correct. And Susie had also written something I think really cool. She said, does it keep the bobbin winder from moving? Well, in a sense it does. It sort of kind of does. Let me just slide this back just a little bit if I can, so I can bring the camera over a little bit closer. So as you move this up to wind a bobbin and bring that up against the rim of the balance wheel, what this little device is designed to do is you can loosen this screw right here, and you can slide this this attachment, this little bracket, you can slide this bracket down or up. When you push it up, and I'll actually show you that real quick. So I just loosened it. I just turned that screw. When I push it all the way up like this, I've got it really, really quite high right now, don't I? When I push it up like that, it's going to allow that bobbin to fill more full. In other words, when you rotate this up, that thread is going to be filling on that bobbin, and then eventually what would happen is that bobbin would get full enough that it would hit this this little marker point right there, and it would stop the bobbin winding process. It would kind of push this away and allow you to have kind of an automatic disengagement as far as winding that bobbin. So the higher I push this up, the more full of a bobbin I'm going to get. As I move it down like this, it's going to reduce the fill rate on that bobbin, how full that bobbin can get. So if I wanted to use a specialty thread, but I didn't want to wind a full bobbin, I could potentially loosen this screw, push it down, and it would only allow that bobbin to fill only a little bit, enough for maybe a couple of stitch lines or whatever we were going to use it for. And then as you move it up like this incrementally, that bobbin is allowed to be filled more and more full. So that's really what it does. Both Susie and Emma were on the right track. It's going to kind of reduce, or it's going to kind of hold back what that bobbin winder is able to do. It's going to kind of reduce or restrict it. It's going to restrict it a little bit. And I usually go right around the mid, maybe a little bit higher than the mid range on this. Got to slide that up just a little bit further. There we go. Usually go just a little bit higher than the mid range. And again, when you tighten it, it's got a little track in here that's supposed to keep this part even, but it does tend to tilt a little bit. So just make sure you kind of get it in alignment so that it's going to make good contact with that bobbin when you rotate it up. And then again, depending on the level that you set it at will decide how much thread you're going to end up having on that bobbin in the end. Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, great answers from both of the ladies, but it's a wonderful idea to have that, isn't it? So again, the rest of the walk around this 301A real quick. This is our stitch length controller, if you didn't know that. We can sew a range of stitch lengths, anything from around 6 stitches per inch, all the way down into the 30 stitch per inch range. And this one also has, like a lot of the Singers, see how that's moving right now. When I get it set on the stitch length that I wanted, I can screw this in so that it doesn't potentially move or shift, so I can lock it into place. And then as I get, see that little demarcation line right there, this little line right here. Once I go above that line, I'm going to be sewing in reverse. And the 301As actually allow you to control the stitch length, even sewing in reverse. So the higher I move it up, the shorter that stitch is going to get until I get all the way to the very top of that stitch length range right there. And then again, if I wanted to sew in reverse like that for an extended period of time, I could just screw this into place. But for our purposes, we're probably going to be sewing somewhere in the 6 to 12 inch range for most of this live stream, I would think. Now, if at any point you have a 301 or 301A and you need to change the light, it's not that difficult. All you have to do is take out these 2 bolts. There's one on either side. Just make sure you have your hand underneath, because the lens that magnifies and targets the light down on the presser foot and on the bed is actually made out of glass. I'll see if I can show that to you real quick, and I'll also shut the light off so you can see it as well. So that lens right there that acts as kind of a focal type lens to direct the light specifically to the needle in that is glass. So the only thing you need to be careful about if you're taking those bolts out is that you have a hand on this so that it doesn't drop. I've had other folks that have tried to change out the light and they didn't really have a good grip on this. It fell to the bed and it broke that lens. So just be aware of that. Also, this requires regular maintenance depending on where your sewing machine is set up. If you're in a dusty area, if you're near the kitchen, this lens, because of the heat being generated, it kind of acts like a magnet and it pulls all the dirt and filth in and makes this lens kind of clouded, and it reduces the effectiveness of how bright the light is. So just keep in mind you've got to clean this periodically so you've got real good visibility down at the needle and on the bed as well. Now, interestingly, most customers that I work with, when I mention the idea of upgrading this light from a standard incandescent bulb to an LED bulb, and I explained the benefits: less heat, significantly more light, they get really excited about it and they say, absolutely, let's upgrade the bulb. Well, for whatever reason, Bill said, no, I want the old style bulb. So you'll notice when I turn this light on and off, it's not going to be quite as bright as the LED bulbs that you'll see me swap them out with, but the customer gets what they want. So they may decide eventually when they try using this, especially if they're not using a lot of auxiliary lighting, they may get frustrated by the light not being sufficient, and they may decide to upgrade it themselves. And now by watching this live stream, this video, they'll be able to see, how to pull this down, clean the lens and all of that, and just make sure that, that the lighting system is going to do its job for them. This is our upper tension. And unlike the upper tension that I showed on the Husqvarna from London, England just yesterday, where that upper tension unit has no stop points. In other words, Adams on his Husqvarna that I live streamed yesterday, you can turn this and 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 turn this. That's not the case on Bill Bradley's. This one has a stop point. Our top point is going to be 9, and then our lowest point is going to be 1. And again, when you set up an upper tension unit like this, you have to understand that there's some calibration involved in setting it up. Let me kind of set the camera down and show you a little bit of what I mean by that. So you can see right now I've got it set on right about 3.5, which doesn't seem like it's very high, does it? But I wanted to give Bill and his family a wider range where they didn't have to crank this way up if they're not getting a good solid lock stitch. Again, if you didn't know it, the upper tension unit is going to be in a tug of war with the bobbin case down below. The bobbin case is going to be pulling down. The upper tension is going to be pulling up to give you good stitch quality. And sometimes, especially depending on the materials you're sewing, you need a little bit more latitude. You need a little bit more muscle to be able to manage the tension factor on the machine with the upper tension unit. So when you set it up, this little plate right here that has the numbers on it can actually depress in. You can actually push it in with 2 of your fingers, and then you can turn this outer knob either clockwise or counterclockwise to give this a little bit more of an aggressiveness when it comes to setting that upper tension level. And by that, I mean that, let's say we're at 0 right now. If I push this in, this inner ring that has the numbers on it, if I push that in, it's going to allow me to turn this one. And let's say I want to reduce it. I can push that inner ring in, and then at the same time holding it in place, I can turn this counterclockwise, and that's going to allow me to go even higher without having as much of a tension boost. If I want more of a tension boost, then I push this little ring in that has the numbers on it, and I turn this outer one clockwise. And then when I click it a little bit, this little pin will lock into that like it is right now. And then you'll be able to only set this, say, like I had it at about 3.5, and you're going to be able to maintain incredible stitch quality, even through the most difficult of materials, without cranking it all the way up to 9 where it is right now. So if you didn't know that you can calibrate this, especially if you're going to be sewing with trickier materials, you now know. And sometimes people will take it apart and they just willy-nilly will kind of screw this back in. And then they wonder, as they're sewing different materials, why they have to crank this all the way up to 8 or 9 in order to get that lock stitch defined. It's because they did not, when they were setting it up, they did not press that inner little piece in that has the numbers on it and turn this a little bit further clockwise before locking it into place. So I hope that's helpful, because a lot of people will battle that. And I've had customers contact me and say, why do I, on this particular machine, have to turn this upper tension all the way up to 8 or 9? I've got to literally max this thing out in order to get a decent looking lock stitch. And once I explain what to do, they're like, it's crazy. I'm getting the same results as far as upper tension set on 3.5 or 4 that I was having to get by cranking it all the way up to 8 or 9. And you can do that on any of these tensioners that are set up similar to this, that have these separate pieces that allow you to calibrate it by pushing that in and then turning this accordingly. Okay, enough blah, 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 but I wanted to explain that real quick so that if you look at the numbers and you go, how is Scott going to get a decent lock stitch with it only set on 3.5? I did this very intentionally to benefit the customer. And if I go too high, it's going to be making that lock stitch too defined and taking away from the top stitch. So this is how we'll be operating today. But I could just as easily, again, back this out a little bit, push that numbered rim in and turn this counterclockwise, and then I would be able to turn this up much higher to get the same result. So hopefully that makes sense. Something looks like a bug light. It does look like a bug light a little bit, doesn't it? Kind of that yellowish color. Yeah. Candido, that's funny. I love it. I love it. And also the other thing that people will struggle with on these sometimes when you take it out, and I won't be able to show this to you in detail, but getting this nice center point, you can see that center point with the minus and the plus, that's a factor of the mounting stem that actually goes into the machine and is held in place by a set screw inside of the faceplate area. And yes, the faceplate does open on the 301A and the 301 to allow you to do maintenance and also to to inspect it or whatever you want to do. But that stem that actually mounts to the machine that all these other pieces are placed onto and attached is what allows you to set that center point so you can get that line in that minus and plus right dead center in the middle. You'll sometimes see these way off to the left or way off to the right, and that's got to be a little bit frustrating for folks as they're trying to see what their set point is on the upper tension. But that does require that you loosen that screw inside of the faceplate and you actually take this entire unit out so that you can adjust that mounting stem that holds this entire upper tension assembly together. The other thing you can set on this, and I'll just show you real quick, is you'll see there's another little screw right over there. That little screw right there is going to either increase or decrease the check spring movement, how far that check spring is traveling during the sewing process. When you're sewing, you'll see this check spring going back and forth. And again, what it basically does is it pulls that thread taut, and it helps to along with the take-up arm, which is this right here. The take-up arm and the check spring are going to be pulling that thread taut during the sewing process so that you get a nicely defined lock stitch. It doesn't just depend on the discs that kind of bite onto that thread and create a resistance to define the stitch. It also depends on this check spring swinging up and down, and then also depends on this take-up arm as well, this take-up arm right here, and pulling that thread taut. So depending on the type of thread you're sewing with, you might want to either increase or decrease this. You just loosen that screw, and then this will pivot left or right. If you pivot it left, it's going to give you a larger range of motion for that check spring. If you pivot it down or to the right, it's going to reduce how far that check spring is allowed to move. And the only benefit of adjusting this, and Husqvarna has something similar, it's a little tab on the bottom of their upper tension. If you're working with a real delicate thread that has a tendency to break, you want this check spring to not be traveling as far. You don't want this check spring to be traveling quite as far. And so by adjusting it, you'll have fewer issues with that thread breaking. One of those thread types would be an example. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Oh, here it is. Got it. So one of those thread types where you would not want that check spring to be traveling as far is this stuff right here. It's 100% rayon thread, and it's rated at 40 weight, but it's really, really fragile when it comes to sewing. I've actually shown this to you on this channel before. It's made by Sulky, and it's a beautiful thread to sew with, but you have to make a number of adjustments on a machine like this one, the 301A, in order to use a thread like this. And one of those adjustments is reducing the travel distance of that check spring by adjusting this screw and kind of shifting that up or down. Again, if you shift it down, you're going to reduce the movement of the check spring. If you push it to the left or up, you're going to increase how far that spring can move. And more spring movement is going to be pulling that thread a little bit heavier if you're sewing through multiple layers. If you're doing quilting or something like that, you might want to have a larger range of motion on that check spring so that you don't get a battle as far as getting that lock stitch to be properly defined, and you don't have to keep cranking this upper tension up and up and up and up. So I hope that's helpful. Oh, son of a gun. It looks like our porno people are back again. And Susie is already dealing with them. We had the same problem with them yesterday as well during the live stream for Adam's machine from London, England. So, all right, a quick little look at the threading on this machine, and then we'll talk about the rest of the setup as well. I'm going to fold this little handle down. I love these handles. They're a wonderful way to move the machine around securely without, trying to cradle the machine or something like that. It's a great idea that Singer came up with. So coming off the top, we're going to come from the spool pin on the rear over here, kind of come through this first thread guide right there. Kind of go like that. And then we actually come through this little groove that's built into the top of the machine. And we come through this next thread guide right through the gold post. We're then going to come down through the tension discs. And I always say this, but I'll say it again. Always make sure that your presser foot lever is in the up position when you're threading the machine. Always make sure your presser foot lever is in the up position when you're threading the machine so that those discs are opened up. There's no pressure on them, and you can slide that thread deep into those discs and get proper tension management. And then as you bring it around the bottom of this upper tension, you're going to have to draw the thread up so that it kind of comes through that take-up spring, and it goes over this little groove right here, this little carriage opening right there where the thread has to seat in there. There we go. Now I've got it pointed the right way. So again, when you come around the bottom of this tension, you have to draw this spring, this check spring kind of up, and then it allows that thread to seat into that little space right there on the upper tension. And then from there, you're going to go behind this large thread guide right there, up to the take-up arm. You thread the take-up arm from right to left. You come down through this thread guide, that thread guide right there. There's another thread guide right there. So we actually have 3 thread guides in a row. We've got 1, 2, and then finally we have a third thread guide just at the very top of the needle right there as well. And a lot of people will miss that last one. They'll get this one and they'll get that one. They'll get this one and they'll get that one. And then they'll end up missing this final thread guide right there just above the needle. So Singer wanted to make sure, especially with this slant needle design, that the flow of the thread was being managed very well. That's why they added some of these extra thread guides down here. So if you're threading your machine, just make sure you get 1, 2, and then finally the third one just above the needle right there. And then when you're setting this needle, the beauty about the 301 and the 301A, like this machine, is it's a foolproof needle socket. When you slide that needle in, you can only slide a needle that has a flat side in one way on this model, and that is with the flat side to the left. If you try to slide the needle in with a flat side to the right, it will not go in. If you try to slide it in with a flat side to the rear or to the front, it will not go in. Only when you rotate it with the flat side to the left will it slide into there beautifully and then you can tighten it up and get it into position. And then finally, when you get all the way down to this point, you're going to thread this needle from right to left, from right to left. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful in knowing how to set the machine up. Today for sewing, I've got this particular needle, which is a Universal by Schmetz, a 9014. There it goes. A 9014, and more specifically, they refer to it as the 13705H. The 13705H. It's a little bit different flavor of the normal Universal Schmetz needle that I use. So we'll have to see how it performs today. We'll have to see how it does. And finally, as far as the needle configuration, the size, you can see it's a 15 by 1, which is different than that recent machine from the 1800s that I did for Trish from Virginia. That was a 12 by 1 type needle that machine took. So you have to kind of watch your needle types. And if you want to learn more about needles and the science of needles and that, there's a great website you can visit if you want to check it out. It's called threadexchange.com. Now, by the title, it sounds like they just deal with threads, but they deal with threads, specialty threads. They deal with every type of needle you can imagine for every kind of machine you can imagine. It's just a great overall resource for gaining knowledge about how to set your machine up for success. Yeah. So because it's around the holidays and it's real close to Christmas time, just for a little bit of extra fun, I decided to cut out some of this satin. It's like a satin material. You would normally see it used for Christmas skirts around trees in that. And I cut out a little circle of this, and then on the bottom, I've got some of this vinyl paper that I've told you about before that you can get at the Dollar Tree. And I just decided, just for fun, I'll kind of go around in a circle, and we can look at the initial stitch quality and how it's managing a real light sew off with this satin material, and then on the bottom, this slippery vinyl material. The 301, 301As have real good feed dogs and have real good feed systems. So hopefully we do okay, but it will be a little bit tricky because of this slippery material on the bottom that we're going to be stitching on. So let me look at the chat real quick. I'll also say welcome to Elaine as well. Welcome to Elaine. I don't know that I've ever seen Elaine's name before. So if you're brand new, it's great to have you here. It's great to have you as part of this live stream, and I'm glad you found us. Oh, wonderful. Elaine just shared, if you didn't read the live chat, she said that the explanation I just tried to give about the tension factor was helpful to her. She's been battling something, and that's the great thing about the classroom, isn't it? We learn from each other, and it makes lives a little bit easier. It makes the sewing experience a little bit more pleasurable without battling things all the time, because sometimes we'll take on a project working with a certain type of material or a specialty thread, like this type of thread I just showed you. And we'll be saying to ourselves, I know that this machine is okay, but why can I not get it to sew this 100% rayon thread? And then when you start to realize the qualities of a thread like this and the setup that you have to do to accommodate it, which also includes taking that bobbin case down below and all but taking the tension down on that bobbin case to zero. You're almost at zero when you're sewing a thread like this on that bobbin case in order to allow the machine to manage it properly. So depending on the thread you're using, the needles you're using, and the material that you're sewing, you may have to do some specialty setup with that machine to be successful. You might have to do some specialty setup. Oh, Elaine, boy, am I, like I said, I deal with so many wonderful customers and so many machines. Elaine is down in the great south of the United States of America, and she is using a 201-2 that I prepared for her because she is teaching her granddaughters how to fall in love with sewing and fall in love with vintage machines, I still owe, I'm going to come on the camera. I still owe Elaine another machine, and I'm going to, without her giving away the secret. So Elaine, please don't give away the secret. Without Elaine giving away the secret, I'm going to tell you that the other machine that I owe Elaine down in the South is referred to as the Queen of Singers. The Queen of Singers. Does someone other than Elaine want to type into the live chat, what machine am I referring to? Elaine, I prepared the 201-2, and then she also wanted another machine that she can use and also introduce her granddaughters to. It's called the Queen of Singers. What machine is that? Yes, Mississippi. Yes, Mississippi. That's right. That's right. The beautiful state of Mississippi. And that's how most of us learned how to spell when we were in school, wasn't it? Mississippi. At least that's how I learned to spell. And I had to look at the screen just to do it. I had to look at the screen, otherwise I'd probably spell it wrong. No one knows what the Queen of Singers is? Are you guys serious? What? The Queen of Singers is the other machine that I'm going to be preparing for Elaine so she can get her granddaughters excited about sewing and get excited about vintage sewing machines. These two machines, the 201-2 that Elaine already has, and this other machine called the Queen of Singers, are going to become, in all likelihood, family heirlooms that she will pass on to these wonderful little girls and keep the love of sewing and keep the love of vintage sewing machines continuing through her family for generations. Well, no one is typing it in there. I don't know if you guys fell asleep or what, but the Queen of Singers is none other than the 222K. The 222K that was made for only 8 years in Kilbowie, Scotland, and they only made about 100,000 of them. So you can imagine how limited their production was and how rare these machines are. Considering over an 8-year period, they only made about 100,000 of these machines. Singer typically with their machines would make sometimes hundreds of thousands of machines a year. Their average production group size would be anywhere from 10,000 up to 100,000 machines. So the fact that over 8 years in Kilbowie, Scotland, they only made about 100,000 of the 222Ks, one of which Elaine purchased from the workshop, and I'm going to prepare and send it to her sometime right after the new year. And she's been very patient with me, very patient as I worked on so many other machines at the same time. She will have a treasure of a machine that can become a legacy piece for her family and an incredible teaching tool for her two granddaughters down there in Mississippi. Yeah. I see that the live stream is still going. Just everyone went so quiet. You guys are so quiet. Ha! Come on, wake up. All right. So let's actually put this 301A to the test. And I'll just sew around a little bit. We'll kind of do a little circle thing, sewing on this satin material and this paper vinyl stuff. And we'll see how this machine does in managing this. I'm also going to real quick just shut a couple things down to make it a little bit quieter in the workshop. I'm going to make it a little bit quieter in the workshop. I am not, however, going to shut off my heater. I'm going to keep that heater pumping because it's really chilly today in Oconto, Wisconsin. And already just getting ready for this live stream, a lot of you will say, does it take you quite a bit of time? Does it take you quite a bit of time to get ready for a live stream? Does it take you time to get ready for a live stream? The answer is yes. The average prep time when it comes to cutting out sew off materials like these back here, doing the finalization checks on the machine, getting it set up with a fresh needle, choosing the proper thread for it, and then also doing some provisional sew offs as well with the machine, it takes me about 2.5 to 3 hours. And then typically when we do a live stream, we spend about 2 to 3 hours together on top of that. So from start to finish in preparation and then also executing the live stream, you're looking at about 5 hours, almost 6 hours of time that I invest. But it's well worth it because that live stream that becomes a video then becomes a teaching tool for people around the world. And also obviously for the customer as well, that they can refer back to and say, how did he thread that machine? How was that set up? What did he do with the needle? How did he do this? How did he do that? How did he say to recalibrate that upper tension so that I can sew this other type of material? It all becomes helpful. So just in preparation, as an initial test, I tested Bill's machine on saddle grade leather, on elk hide, protected full grain leather, this awful, look at that stuff curl, this awful Naugahyde stuff that they used to cover furniture with left and right. It's kind of a fake looking leather, but it's got a huge amount of vinyl in it. Look at that stuff. It wants to stand alone and just say, look at me, I'm being a curlicue. And I sewed some of this compressed felt as well, some of this bubblegum material, more of this protected full grain leather, some really light cotton with no stiffener. And then I also stitched on some of this vinyl paper as well, just to run the machine through the paces before we had this live stream, so I could see what its capabilities and what its obstacles might be. But already we have the beginning on this needle that's in there right now of a pretty significant sew-off sandwich to begin our Sewing Olympics during this live stream. What else didn't I cover? Oh, I know what else I didn't cover. Let me lift this bed up. Let me lift this bed up and give you a little glimpse down here. So if you didn't know it, the bobbin case that the 301 and 301A take is the same bobbin case that goes in a featherweight. So a featherweight, whether it's a 221, a 22-1, or even the 222K, the queen of singers that I'm preparing for Elaine right now down in Mississippi, all of those machines, the 222K from Kilbowie, Scotland, the 221, the 22-1, the 301, the 301A are all going to take the same bobbin case and the same bobbin. And when you set up this 301A for sewing, and the same thing is true of the 301, you want to make sure when you are holding that bobbin case in your left hand and holding that bobbin in your right hand, and you slide that bobbin into the bobbin case, that thread is going to be coming over the top of that bobbin. You want to have that thread coming over the top of the bobbin when you bring those two together, so that when that thread is dispensing, this bobbin is going to be turning clockwise. A lot of our Singer bobbins are going to be turning counterclockwise, just like our Swedish machines and some of our Swiss machines. A lot of those will turn counterclockwise. On this one, you need to make sure that it's turning clockwise. Okay? One of the other things that people really loved about the introduction, the grand introduction of the 301 in 1951, was unlike the original featherweight that was introduced at the Chicago World's Fair right around 1933-34. That machine introduced at the Chicago World's Fair, I refer to it as the Princess of Singers, the little featherweight, does not have a feed dog drop on it like the 301 and the 301A. This little knob right here, if you turn it counterclockwise, it's going to allow you to drop the feed dogs. And then if you crank it back clockwise again, it's going to push those feed dogs back up to fully engage so you can resume sewing again. But this is one of the things that they really, really loved about this grand introduction of the 301 when it rolled out in 1951, was the idea that you didn't have to use a darning plate. You didn't have to use a darning plate. You could simply turn this knob, the feed dogs would drop, you could turn it back, the feed dogs pop back up again. So really, really a nice addition, along with the fact that this belt, along with the fact that this machine does not have a belt. There's no belt on this machine. It has gears that come off of an output pulley from the vertically mounted tower motor that's in here. There's actually a motor that runs the entire length of this pillar on the machine, and it's got worm style gears at the top of it on the output pulley that interface with matching gears that are made out of a Teflon material on the balance wheel. And when they mesh together, you get positive traction, you get immediate burst, and you don't have to battle that issue of a glazed belt or a belt that doesn't have the proper tensioning or whatever it is, it just right away makes it a lot easier to use the machine as long as you maintain it properly. So that, along with a convenient little carrying handle, were some of the perks that they added to this machine, and also its predecessor, the 301, when it was introduced back in 1951. And again, the crazy thing is they only made the 301 for 1 year at Elizabethport, New Jersey, and then they kicked in production full force around 1953 for these 301As and made them until right around 1957. So, but again, how cool is it to have a machine that started the entire process for the Slant-O-Matic family? And if you're brand new to sewing, you don't know anything about, what are you talking about, Slant-O-Matics? What the heck is a Slant-O-Matic? Oh, good morning to Michelle as well. Good morning to Michelle. Good to have Michelle back. Slant-O-Matics are machines that were designed by Singer. It was started again with the 301 in 1951, and then they made a whole family of Slant-O-Matics that would have similar properties to them, similar properties like that slant needle and certain feed dog features. They ended up going away from this style here, and they ended up adding a throat plate riser to a number of the Slant-O-Matic machines that followed the 301s. But that positive traction direct drive with no belt needed was another one of the really nice features that they had on these machines. All right, so let's actually start sewing. I've been gabbing now for over an hour. You guys know I have the gift of gab, right? So let's see if we can just stitch around a little bit. I want you to listen to this machine run. She arrived really rough. And if you look at the Facebook group shots that I posted, and I'll try to remember to put those in the description of this live stream as well, this machine needed so much. It came from eBay. All of us know it's kind of a mixed bag of tricks. You never really know what you're going to get when you buy something from eBay. There's a lot of charlatans out there that know they can turn a quick buck and selling a vintage sewing machine that's desirable, and they'll say it's fully restored. Like this one, the seller on eBay told my customer that it was fully restored. Way, 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 way far from the truth. They hadn't done a thing to this machine. It needed so much. So, all right, let's just stitch around a little bit now. Let's stitch around a little bit. And when I come around circle, I'll cut this thread so I don't end up sewing over it, hopefully. All right, here we go. And this particular satin material is really going to suck that stitch down, so it's going to be hard for us to see it. I'll have to pull them back probably. I'm just going to give this a clip. And my thought in taking time to cut out this satin type material and this paper vinyl was, if you have like Elaine down in Mississippi, if you have a granddaughter or a son or daughter, whoever, that you're wanting to get interested in sewing, you can very easily cut out little things like this and just have them stitch them together, just to experience the machine, just to get excited about the process of sewing and creating something. And you could easily add a couple little things to this and make it an ornament. You could make it an ornament, maybe have them stitch around the edges and then put a picture in the middle or something else, just to create a simple little project to get a young person excited about getting involved in sewing. And that's kind of why I did this. But I'm just going to keep sewing a little bit further. We just kind of go around in a circle a little bit more. And again, the feed system is really quite good on this machine, along with the foot controller. So I'm able to manage the speed on this machine really, really well, even though it doesn't have a slow gear or something like that. But again, that vinyl on the backside is really slippery. So I might even bump up my presser foot pressure a little bit more, just so that we don't get any slipping on this. All right, that's enough. That's enough. I just want to do a little bit of stitching on that, kind of get us warmed up a little bit. And just give you a chance to look at some of the stitching on this material. And again, combining a paper vinyl with a satin material is probably not real common. but I think it would make a nice little ornament or some other little project for some kiddos that you're trying to get excited about sewing. And again, when you change between materials, when you are sewing with a particular type of needle, you might well need to adjust tension. All in all, I'm looking at the tension right here, where we can see the stitches presented very clearly, where the nap of this satin material is not kind of concealing it. And we've got a really good looking stitch balance on top. Again, it's going to vary as we go over the material. That slippery bottom right here with this vinyl is going to cause a little bit of challenge for us. And also seeing these stitches on this vinyl is going to be a little bit of a challenge for us as well. But as I turn it to the side, I can see on the stitching, at least, we've got some beautiful lock stitching on the back of here again. And right now, again, our upper tension is only set on about 3.5. So calibrating it again gives you a much easier range without having to crank it way up. But this is just our initial sew off for fun. And I've got an extra one in here as well that I'm going to send with the machine so that Bill's wife and his daughter can sit down and just goof around a little bit and stitch off with this. Let's see what I'm going to sew next. What am I going to sew next? Again, I've got a universal needle in there, but I haven't tested it. I have not tested it against, oh, we actually have some of that material sticking to the needle right there. You can see that satin stuff kind of bites the needle a little bit, doesn't it? Why don't we go into some leather sewing right now? We'll go into some leather sewing next. And what I have underneath the presser foot right now is some elk hide. Genuine elk hide is chemically processed, if you didn't know that. And elk hide raises the threshold significantly, of being able to pierce it with a needle, even a universal needle like this. And again, that website that I told you about, thethreadexchange.com, will really educate you on the differences between the needle types that are available out there. Again, a standard needle is going to have 10 parts to it. And depending on how each of those parts is set up, it will either make your sewing process easier or it'll make it more difficult. So why don't we do this next? Why don't we buzz down this elk hide? And again, because I've got that direct drive motor, I'm going to stitch down this without a hand start. We'll just kind of buzz through it. And we'll check out the stitching on this as well. All right, here we go. I took that a little bit faster than I planned to, but that's okay. That's okay. And I can see right now we've got a decent looking top stitch. Again, the thing about these live streams is I go through a wide field of materials. I don't sew just one type of material. I'll go from a satin material and vinyl paper, like we just sewed with that little circle. And then I'll jump over to elk hide using the same needle, the same thread type. So right now, as I'm looking at this elk hide, we've got a decent looking top stitch. It's quite lovely, but we can make it better because right now it's just a tiny little bit underserved. It's a tiny little bit underserved, which means that bobbin case down below that's trying to pull down for all it's worth, it's trying to pull down and give us a nicely defined top stitch, is losing the battle just a little bit against that upper tension. So I'll probably stitch down one more time, but I'll make a quick adjustment first. Because right now we want to give a little bit more authority back to that top stitch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just slightly turn our upper tension counterclockwise to the left to reduce the pull up factor, which is going to increase the pull down factor for the bobbin case. Again, just think of it like a tug of war. The upper tension is pulling up, the bobbin case is pulling down, and right now the bobbin case is trying all for its worth to pull down and get that top stitch just spot on, but that upper tension is being a bully. So we're going to take a little bit of that bully factor away by reducing the upper tension slightly, which will give a little bit more authority back to that bobbin case. Not a significant movement, just slightly to the left. Again, because of the way I have this calibrated, it's going to, a little bit of a movement is going to make a big impact. It's going to make a big impact. So you don't want to overturn it. Otherwise, we're going to lose part of that lock stitch. And that's the balance factor when you're making adjustments in tension. You've got to be careful you don't overdo something. Otherwise, you'll improve one area and you'll hurt another at the same time. All right, so we just made a little adjustment. We'll buzz down this one more time. Again, I'm not going to do a hand start. It is genuine elk hide, but we're still going to stitch it down and just allow it to do its thing. So check that lock stitch, make sure I don't go too far. All right, let's go down again. It's our second run against this elk hide. Here we go. That's exactly what I wanted to see. That's exactly what I wanted to see. I wanted to have a little bit more definition. And if you look at these two lines very carefully, you'll see that this one it's a decent looking top stitch, but this one right here where we bumped back that upper tension a little bit so that that bobbin case could pull down just a little bit harder has given us now a very, very lovely looking top stitch that has a little bit more pop to it. The whole thing about stitches, whether it's the top stitch or whether it's the lock stitch, which is kind of hard to see on this elk hide with that nap, isn't it? But if I pull it back, you can get a clearer picture of it. The whole thing about stitching is it's got to have pop. It's got to have panache. It's got to have that sense of look at me, look at me. And right now we're sewing a leather that probably on the scale of leathers is one of the tougher leathers to sew because of the chemical process that they take it through. And this 301A just buzzed through it like we were sewing a light cotton. Look at that from the side. It's definitely not a thin leather at all. And yet we laid down stitching that's absolutely brag-worthy. The top stitch and the lock stitch. And we just tweaked that upper tension a little bit to try to refine that stitch a little bit further. And that's what the serious sewist is not going to accept mediocrity. They're not going to accept mediocrity. They're going to want to have a stitch that has pop and panache when it comes to how it presents. So that's our elk hide. I'm going to move our elk hide to the back with our other sew-offs that we've already done. Some of them off camera, some of them on camera. Now what I'm going to do to really evidence the strength of this 301A is I'm going to do something that a lot of people that watch this video later are going to say, wait a second, hold on a second. I got to rewind that. Did he really just do what I think he did? Did he really just do what I think he did? Number one, is he actually sewing through that leather without a leather needle? The answer is yes. We're sewing with a universal needle. Again, this is the needle we're using today right here, which is a slightly different flavor of the universal needle. It's a 130 blah blah blah. What is it? 130 70H 705H, a 130 705H universal needle, size 9014. So on the end of the needle down here, it does not have the advantage of what a leather needle would have, where it has a very clear cutting edge adjacent to the point and just below the scarf that allows it to cut through that leather very, very nicely. The universals don't have the benefit of that cutting edge. They've got a very sharp point, but they're designed for a wide field of materials, not specifically for leather. So that person that watches this video later is going to say, are you serious? Did he really just sew through this much leather using a universal needle and using a 301A? A lot of people have the mindset of a 301 or a 301A. They almost treat them like a little bit bigger sister to the featherweight, and they kind of baby them. They kind of pamper them a little bit, and they don't push them into the heavier sewing realms, which is why I love doing a live stream like this, so I can demonstrate that this machine is capable of sewing through this much leather. We're looking at leather that's probably about 3 to 4 millimeters thick. On the leather standards, it's going to be right around 8 to 10 ounces of leather. And again, it's genuine elk hide, which means this is chemically processed. It's going to raise that piercing threshold even higher. I'm going to put these back to back, so when we stitch through it, we're going to be able to hopefully see that stitching a lot easier than we could on the single piece of elk hide when we were trying to pull those stitches back and look at the stitches through this real furly nap on here. So let me get this into position again. Look at what we're going to be sewing through. This is thicker right now than a heavy belt that someone might wear with a pair of blue jeans or something like that. And I am hoping that we can celebrate the success of this machine in being able to get this job done. Now, I will be probably giving this machine a little bit of a hand start going through this much leather. I might give it a little bit of a hand start going through this leather, especially considering we're using a universal needle. We're not using a leather needle. Leather needle would give us a little bit of an edge in cutting through it. We don't have that edge right now, so I might have to give this motor a little bit of a boost. Real quick question for all of you, since this is a learning environment, we learn from each other. We learn from each other all the time, don't we? Does anyone know what size motor this 301A has? Does anyone know what size motor this 301A has? Type in the chat if you do. And I'm looking for amperage. You know, is it 0.4 like the featherweight? Is it 0.6 like a lot of the 201-2s? Is it 0.7 like some of the 101 singers that were the predecessor to the 201-2? What size motor does this machine have? If anyone knows, type it in the chat, please. It might surprise you what size this motor is. And while you're getting surprised about that and trying to come up with the answer, and if you need to Google it, I don't know that you'll find it in Google, but if you need to Google it to find out what size motor this 301A has, go ahead and do that. That's okay. That's just a resource that you're using. And Susie is guessing at 0.5, and Susie is really, really close, but she's a little bit, just ever so slightly lower than what the motor size is. Really, really close. Really, really, really close. All right, let's see if we can get through this leather. Again, 2 layers. I'm hoping I don't break this needle. A 9014 should be able to handle this. It handled it off camera when I did a test run on it. But again, when you're doing a live stream, all kinds of weird things can happen, can't they? So hopefully we get through this. Hopefully we don't break the needle. But if we break the needle, because this is a one-way shaft and it only allows you to put the needle in one way with the flat side to the left, we can change this needle out just like that if it breaks. But hopefully we don't break it. Emma is absolutely spot on. This machine only comes with a 0.54, a 0.53, or they did make some of them in the later production years around 1956 and 57. They did upgrade these by 1/10 of an amp, which was kind of ridiculous. But some of these motors will also be stamped with 0.54 amps. But Emma's correct. Most of them are going to be rated at 0.53, which means after I go through, like you've seen me do on the Facebook shots, and I tear the motor apart and I optimize the motor, it's going to be peaking right about at 0.6. So it's going to be putting out the same power or comparable power to, say, a 201-2, the Rolls-Royce of Singer sewing machines. But yeah, very, very good input by 2 of my leaders, Susie and Emma. And don't be intimidated for the rest of you that are watching. Jump in and throw a guess out there. No one's going to criticize you. No one's going to judge you if you throw a guess out about a question that I pose and you get it wrong. Who cares? Getting it wrong just means that we're one step closer to getting it right, doesn't it? It's kind of like when Edison made the light bulb. He tried like almost 1,000 times to make a light bulb work and failed. And someone said to him, "Don't you feel discouraged by your failures of trying almost 1,000 times to make a light bulb?" He goes, "No, not at all. It's a stepping stone to making, figuring out how to make the light bulb work. It's not a failure. It's an achievement when we step out there and we're courageous and we venture a guess. So guess away if I throw questions out. And I'll give you one more question to ponder as we get ready to stitch, hopefully, these 2 layers of elk hide together. I'm going to throw out a question that is, We already know that this 301A would have come on the scene right around 1953, and they would have made it until 1957. What other slant-o-matic machines did Singer make that would have come on the scene about the same time that this was in production? In other words, what other slant-o-matic machines came on the scene between 1953 and 1957? What other slant-o-matic machines came on the scene between 1953 and 1957? I'll give you a real big hint. It's only one other machine. One other machine was introduced right near the production ending point of this 301A. Another machine was introduced that also is a slant-o-matic right around the same time that this machine was coming to an end, a little bit later than that, to be specific. I'll even give it the year. There was another machine introduced right around 1956. And again, this left production in 1957. So about a year before this was going to be ending production, Singer introduced another slant-o-matic right around 1956. And that machine was in production until 1961. So this mystery machine, which Susie nailed it, is the 401, or specifically the 401A, because the 401A was made at the Anderson, South Carolina plant. The 401A was introduced just a year before this 301A went out of production, again from 1956 to 1961. And the 401A, if you've never sat down to a 401A, you gotta see even get your hands on one. And be careful about choosing one. There's a lot of specific service points on that machine. And if you buy one off of eBay, you might inherit a lot of problems. Just letting you know. But Susie's absolutely right. In 1956, the 401A came on the scene. And then just a year later, production ended on this 301A. I'll give you some other slant-o-matic trivia questions as well in just a little bit. Okay. All right. No drum roll needed. Let's just see if we can get this done. 2 layers of heavy grade, genuine elk hide. Keep your fingers crossed. This is not going to be easy. Keep your fingers crossed. And I did give it just a little bit of a boost as far as the balance wheel. Just a little bit of a boost. What a lovely stitch. Let's see how it managed that lock stitch. It managed the lock stitch just as beautifully as it did the top stitch going through this much leather. That is a major, major achievement. If anyone wants a sample of this elk hide to try it on your machine, and you're willing to cover just the postage, which couldn't be very much to mail something like this, right? It's got to be pretty cheap. I'll be glad to send you a sample of this so you can try this on your sewing machine. It doesn't have to be a 301 or a 301A, but I would love for you to give this a try. Let me angle this camera a little bit more. But we got a beautiful result. Again, when you're sewing this much leather, look at that from the side, what we just went through. When you're sewing this much leather, you've got to make some provisions as far as the feed of this material, especially when you're going with 2 layers like this back to back. What I should have done to get even a more robust top stitch is I should have bumped up that presser foot pressure even higher. If you didn't know it, when you're sewing multiple layers or you're sewing a heavy material like this leather, probably about 10 ounces of leather, you want to increase that presser foot pressure so it's pushing down harder with that presser foot against that material, driving it into those feed dogs. If you don't have that added pressure, you're going to be battling with getting a nice, full, robust stitch. Right now, even though I've got it set on 6 stitches per inch, let's see how close we got to that going through something this difficult. So if I get out my tape measure, we'll start right on this end right here. So yeah, when you're sewing something like this, you're going to get a little bit of a compression of that stitch because the material is having difficulty feeding, especially if you don't bump up the presser foot pressure. So I've got the machine set right now on between 6 to 7 stitches per inch. But in fact, we're getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're getting eight stitches per inch because I didn't bump up the presser foot pressure. So I've got the machine calibrated right now with the stitch length on 6 to 7 stitches per inch. Instead of getting 6 to 7 stitches per inch, which give us a bigger stitch, we're getting 8 stitches per inch. And that is strictly a product of feed. That's strictly a product of feed and that machine being able to push with that presser foot against the material and move it evenly across those feed dogs as the feed dogs are moving in the sewing process. The more pressure you add to a material like this, the larger those stitches are going to become because that feed factor is improved. If we were to crank it way up, we could then go from 8 stitches per inch to 7, and eventually we could hopefully get really close to 6 stitches per inch. But again, 6 stitches per inch is under ideal circumstances. You're sewing a light cotton, you're sewing, you're doing some general quilting, you're doing something that's not as ridiculously outrageous as something like this. So we may never be able to, especially using a standard presser foot attachment like we have right now. This is a very standard presser foot. If we were to add a rolling foot or we were to add a walking foot to it, coupled with increasing that presser foot pressure, we should be able to get really, really close to that 6 stitches per inch, even sewing something outrageous like this. If we turn it over, we're not going to see any difference. We're still going to have a lovely, lovely lock stitch from start to finish with this genuine elk hide. Lovely stitching. Could we make it better? Absolutely, we could make it better by using a leather needle that would have that serrated cutting edge near the point that would cut through this leather with even greater precision and greater ease and allow that stitch to be even better defined than it is right now. But I'll tell you one thing, with our setup, with a standard type universal needle, sewing with a common Coats and Clark thread, we're doing really, really well. This is a lovely, lovely example of some page 34, if not page 34 plus stitching. Lock stitch. I got to hold it here again just to show you guys what we just went through. And also our top stitch as well. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. Beautiful balance. So right now, I say it jokingly, but I say it seriously as well. Right now, our bobbin case down below, the same bobbin case that will work in your featherweight, that bobbin case below right now has reached out a hand of friendship to our upper tension, and they become buddies. They become buddies because we're looking at stitching like this, and we're looking at stitching like that. They're not trying to fight each other. They're working together, which is as it should be. But I'll tell you one thing, I'm really proud of what this machine is doing now. When this machine arrived in the workshop, coming directly from that eBay seller, and that's what I would encourage you to do. If you decide that you want to buy a machine on eBay, you see a great deal, the price is right, the seller has good feedback. This is the first sewing machine they've sold. They've sold a lot of sewing machines. They've got a good reputation through their feedback. Nonetheless, because their knowledge base in servicing that machine to the level that it should be is not going to be to the extent of mine, I would strongly encourage you, make that purchase, but tell the seller, just like Bob did, tell the seller, do not mail it to me, mail it to the workshop in Oconto. And then what I can do is, number one, I can do an unboxing. I can do an unboxing with a live stream. And if that seller's done a crummy job of packing it and the machine has sustained damage, we will actually do a live stream documenting that so you can file a claim, or you can get that seller to credit you money back for whatever was damaged in the shipping process. And then I'll take it through the workshop magic and get it sewing at a level like this. There's no way this machine would have been able to sew something like this when it arrived at the workshop. And now it's sewing it with just a little bit of a hand boost, and it's going through it like it's a light sew off. Okay. What do we sew next? Let me kind of move the camera back here and let you all get involved in deciding what we're going to sew next. Should also include this as well. This is 100% cotton. 100% cotton with a stiffener is one of the options as well. I'm going to throw that to the back over there. So we've got saddle grade leather here. We've got Naugahyde, which is that fake leather with a lot of vinyl in it. We've got more of that vinyl. Am I getting that right? Vinyl paper, I believe. Yeah, I think this is vinyl. Oh, I'm having a brain cramp. It should be vinyl paper. Isn't that what I called it? Yeah, vinyl paper. I was doubting myself. This is actually the container. If you have a Dollar Tree, near you, if you're visual like I am, and you're looking for this stuff, it comes in a variety of different colors. It comes in a box like this. I believe the piece that they give you is right around 12 inches long. So it's a pretty good size piece. And then there's different color choices. But this vinyl paper would be a lot of fun if you have a granddaughter, grandson, or a son or daughter, or just a little kid in your neighborhood that you want to get interested in sewing. You can cut this into any shape you want, and they can stitch around it, do all kinds of fun things to it. And then it has a sticky back, so they could actually put it up somewhere. They could display their work after they get done sewing it. So really neat stuff. And for $1.25 for a nice chunk of this stuff, you can do a lot of fun things with it. Vinyl paper. So vinyl paper, I've got that in a couple of colors. We have this, what color would you call this? This blue color right here. We've got this blue color. We've got the purple color. There's a specific name for this type of blue, and I don't remember what it's called. But then we've got some protected full grain leather way over here. We've got some of this compressed felt way down over here. We got some of this protected full grain leather down here. I actually even pulled out, I haven't sewn this for a while on a live stream. I even pulled this potato sack material out, which is kind of silly for me to do because it's so much easier to stitch this together when you have a machine that will do a zigzag because you can see the stitching on it. But I pulled this out nonetheless so that if someone said, I just want to see the machine stitch it, I realize it'll be hard to see the stitching through this material, but I just want to see the machine stitch this stuff. I think they also call it gunny sack material, don't they? But it's really, really strong stuff. It's a woven material and not easy for a sewing machine to get through it, especially if we stitch like 2 pieces or 3 pieces of this stuff together. So that's another option. We have some of this acrylic fiber. This stuff is man-made and it's used to make awnings. So you know if it's strong enough to support awnings against the wind, the cold, the sun, everything else. Very, very tough stuff to get through. And then we have some good old-fashioned denim. We have some denim here as well, heavy grade denim that we could sew. Yeah, I think that's about it. So if anyone wants to chime in, Wedgwood, that's a fun name. Wedgwood. Yeah, Elaine is right. The whole intent of Singer in coming up with this slant needle bar, so that instead of the bar, the needle bar going up and down, it goes up and down, but it goes on an angle. And Elaine is exactly right. It's all about visibility. And really the motivation for Singer in coming up with this slant design, starting in 1951 with the predecessor of the machine that we're featuring today, the 301, that was only made for 1 year in Elizabethport, New Jersey. The whole intent is to get better visibility of the stitches as the stitches are being laid down, because that needle is tilted forward. You're able to see that stitch line being laid down much sooner than you could if that needle were strictly up and down, because that needle kind of protrudes forward and you're able to see that stitch line being laid down much easier, much quicker, much better visibility, like Elaine was saying. So it really is a fabulous thing. What is Wedgwood, Susie? Is that the color? Is that what color that is? Wedgwood? This is considered Wedgwood, this stuff? I didn't know that, if that's what you meant.
I would have almost called it kind of a turquoise blue or something weird like that. I have no idea. I'm really bad with colors. I can see colors just fine, but as far as what to call them is the challenge for me. So, but anyone want to chime in? Oh, Wedgwood blue. See that? I say it all the time, and people that are skeptics about our classroom here, people that are skeptics about cow country, probably say, well, yeah, the guy's been doing it for almost like going on 30 years. He's an expert, and he keeps talking about the people in the classroom being fellow teachers. They're not fellow teachers. What do they know? Well, Susie just demonstrated again the truth of what I say, and that is that we're sometimes teachers, we're always students. I'm learning from Susie right now. I had never heard of Wedgwood blue before. I don't know if any of you other folks had heard of it, but this is Wedgwood blue apparently. Maybe this is a special type of purple too. I'm just calling it purple, but maybe it's a special type of purple for those of you that are really knowledgeable. And it's a little bit hard to see in this lighting, isn't it? Maybe this is a special type of purple, which I'm looking at the laptop and the color isn't really showing up very well, isn't? Color's not showing up very well. Yeah. But yeah, it's great to learn from each other, isn't it? It's great to learn from each other. Let's see. So no one's chiming in as far as what you want me to sew next. No one's chiming in. A lot of choices, everything from saddle grade leather all the way down to gunny sack material. So I guess I'll just grab something and we'll just give it a try, right? We'll just give it a try. So I've got this saddle grade leather next. Got some of this saddle grade leather that we can try stitching next. And again, saddle grade leather is used to make anything from gun holsters. It's used in the, what do they call the horse arena thing? Is that equestrian? Am I getting that right? I don't remember what it's called. Equestrian? What are the horse things? The horse people things? And I should know this. And Christine from Canada actually has horses, so she probably will watch this and say, Scott, you didn't know what that was called? Isn't it equestrian or I can't remember what it's called. The horse, like people that are involved with horses, there's a special name for it. But at any rate, they make the reins and they make other things for the horses out of this type of leather as well. It's really, really good leather for making different leather goods. And we're going to go initially through one layer of it, and then I'll probably add this second layer to it as well, so we can get two thicknesses of this leather like we did with the elk hide, right? Yeah, we did that with the elk hide, 2 layers of that as well. And I'll put these back to back. You can kind of see it. This is a much flatter nap on this saddle grade leather. Wait, Thalia just typed in Emma typed in as well. Equestrians. Equestrian. I hope I'm saying that right. Equestrians. That's kind of what it looks like. Oh, Four Oaks Living is in Wisconsin as well. How close are you to the workshop for Four Oaks? Four Oaks Living is in Wisconsin. Are you close to Oconto, Wisconsin? I'm about 25 miles north of Green Bay is where the workshop is. Okay, Emma said I said it right. I love learning from all of you. And I knew it was something like that, but I couldn't get it right. So equestrian. That's really a cool word. I've got to remember that. Got to try to remember that. All right, so let's go on with some of this equestrian style leather that would be used for different implements for horses and in a farm or in a ranch setting potentially. Also to make a lovely gun holster too. Let's see if we can get through 2 layers of this. I'll probably if I put it back to back like this, we'll be able to see that stitching even better. It creates a little bit more of a challenge to the machine when you go against the grain. In other words, we're not putting the grain facing the same way, but but I think this machine can handle it. Again, it only has a 0.53 amp motor in it, but it's got a lot of grit, a lot of power. So let's give it a try. Okay, I'm going to get this into place. So the Thalia had just Latigo, like Latigo. Tell me what Latigo is, Candido. What is Latigo? Latigo. What is the question? Candido. What did you mean by Latigo? Are you saying the type of leather or what? Or is it something else that you're describing? While Candido is responding to that, and I'm not sure what they mean by what is the question. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, yeah. I actually knew that part of it. I knew that the word that I was trying to say was a term analogy relating to horse activities. So they have equestrian functions as well, where the horses will do different things. They'll go around an arena and they'll do certain aerobatics. They'll jump over things. They'll do other things like that. That's all part of that equestrian circle, then, isn't it? It's all part of that equestrian circle. But at any rate, my simple mind is I have set this machine up to be able to handle this level of sewing. So I'm going to see if we can get through this leather now that Bill, that owns the machine, is going to give it to his wife and daughter, or someone else that has a 301 or 301A is going to be encouraged by saying, I did not know that my 301 or 301A potentially can sew through that much leather. And then they can come up with a fun project to take on, to do. The machine I live streamed yesterday, if you missed it, was the one that was shipped all the way from London, England. And what Adam is going to do with his Husqvarna that I restored for him and repaired, he's going to be sewing vintage military jackets. So he was really excited to see what his Husqvarna could do with leather, because he's going to be handling a lot of different types of leather. Yeah, that makes sense. Saddle tie straps. Oh, and thank you to Emma. Emma just typed in more specifically Latigo leather and describes what that is. And a lot of the leathers will look similar too, won't they? Sometimes you'll get a leather that has been dyed or processed in a certain way, and it will look like Italian leather. And then under closer examination, you'll look at it and you go, no. This is protected full grain leather. It's just dyed and it's processed a little bit differently. Again, like I was showing yesterday when I sewed some genuine elk hide on Adam's machine that is going to be heading back to London really soon. There was a drastic color difference on the two sides of the elk hide that I sewed with his machine. One side looked really light. It looked almost albino white. It was really white. The other side was much darker. So the way the stitches presented looked very differently too. But this saddle gray type leather, or the Latigo leather, it sounds like it would also work incredibly well for equestrian applications. Yeah. You guys are so smart. I say it all the time. You're so smart. I love when you step out and you share your knowledge. It benefits all of us, doesn't it? Okay, so let's give this a try now. Let's try to get down this saddle grade style leather. Try to get the camera lined up. The only thing I don't like about these extension beds that tilt is they kind of get in the way of me getting closer to the action. I could try to move the camera around to the front, but then it's going to make it a little bit harder for me to get my hands in there. You know what I mean? I'll do my best to try to maneuver around it to give you a little bit of a different view of the stitching as it's going down. And again, as you look at this slant needle as opposed to a needle bar that's vertically upright, you're going to see that stitching getting laid down much quicker than you would otherwise, which is kind of cool. All right. And I'm just going to bump up my presser foot pressure a little bit as well. Give us a little bit more of a chance of getting a fullness of stitch. All right, here we go. 2 layers of saddle grade leather. And my friends in this live stream have told me that it is very popular in the equestrian circles. Yeah, let's give it a go. Here we go. Ha ha! Yes! I think we're going to get some beautiful stitching, and just ignore the fact that I should have used little clips to hold these 2 leather pieces together so they kind of shifted a little bit. And yeah, that's my excuse. That's my excuse anyway. Now you'll notice that I bumped up that presser foot pressure. I mentioned that. You didn't see me do it, but I did it because I talked about the fact that we were only getting 8 stitches per inch with that elk hide. You're going to notice that our stitch length improvement was benefited by that presser foot attachment bump up. I think I just meant something. I have no idea what I just meant, but at any rate. But this is beautiful stitching, folks. I'll try to get it even a little bit closer to the camera. The stitch quality, the spacing, the formation on this leather, it doesn't hardly get any better than this. It's absolutely gorgeous stitching. And the fullness of the stitches really, really looks pretty impressive. Let me get a quick measurement just to see if it's just my eyes or if in fact we improved in the length of these stitches by bumping up that presser foot pressure. So we were getting 8 stitches per inch before bumping it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now we're getting 7. We're getting 7 stitches per inch instead of 8. And yes, it's a different type of leather, but we're still going through 2 layers of saddle grade leather. And now we've gained an additional stitch in that 1 inch span by bumping up the presser foot pressure. So if we were able to crank it up even higher, we could probably, even going through this much leather, we could get the 6 stitches per inch, which means we would even get a more robust stitch than we are right now. Yeah, 7 stitches per inch now through saddle grade leather, 2 layers of it. And not only that, but we laid down a page 34 plus stitch. I'm going to look at the laptop just to see if you can see it. Yes, you can. Absolutely gorgeous stitching. I'll kind of tilt it like this as well. How is our lock stitch going to work? How is that going to look? I say it all the time. Lock stitches are much more challenging to get proper definition and stitch presentation, because when that needle passes through this super thick leather, these 2 thick layers of leather, it has to pull that thread back up through the leather as well. So oftentimes you'll battle getting good stitch quality with that lock stitch. And that's where having an upper tension like this calibrated that gives you a more aggressive approach to managing that tension factor for that lock stitch can really benefit you if you're going to be sewing a lot of leather. Can really benefit you, but I don't think we're going to need it. We turn it over. We've got an absolutely, this is our lock stitch now. We've got an absolutely gorgeous lock stitch to boot, going through 2 layers of saddle grade leather. Everything about that stitching is just as it should be. The spacing, the presentation, the glory of the stitch. If you were using this on a material or using it on a project or a product, it would be absolutely spectacular to present. Let me see if I can actually show this one to you by putting it up on the stitch off holder thing instead of just kind of holding it willy-nilly here. Give you a better view of it so you can appreciate the stitch quality that this 301A just laid down through a very difficult sew off. I just have to find my stitch off holders first. They're somewhere around here. Where are my stitch off holders? Are they behind Santa? Oh, I moved them. I moved them because I added Santa to the workbench for the holidays. That's what it is. I'll grab another one off the other workbench. Santa is taking the space where I typically will put my stitch off holders. All right, let's do this.
Get this set up right about there. Let me see if I can actually go up to here. This might be a little bit easier for me. So again, 2 layers of saddle grade leather. Look at it from the side. Not an easy sew off at all. And again, by bumping up our pressure foot pressure, we now have 7 stitches per inch set at the max setting on the machine. Where with the elk hide, because I hadn't bumped up that pressure foot pressure, we were only getting about 8 stitches per inch. So because pressure foot pressure is so important in the sewing process, we had it set on here, but with that saddle grade leather, because the pressure foot pressure wasn't high enough, we were only getting this 8 stitches versus 6 or 7 stitches per inch. But let's actually look at the stitching now and see what we think of that. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. We'll see what you think. Just trying to get my pro camera to focus here. Wow. Unbelievable. Totality of the stitching. This again is our top stitch. Folks, I'm going to say that that's a page 34 plus. That is absolutely a lovely, lovely stitch on these 2 layers of saddle gray leather. Now let's turn it over and actually look at the lock stitch and see how we did, because that's going to be the bigger challenge. That's going to be the bigger challenge, along with me trying to do this with one hand. This is the bigger challenge right here, getting a nicely defined lock stitch when we're talking about sewing through this much leather using a non-leather sewing needle. Now, if I were considering buying an equestrian type leather piece from a sewist that was laying down stitching like this, it's a done deal. I've got my credit card out already. I want to buy whatever it is if it's got stitching like this through this much leather. Beautiful, beautiful lock stitch. Totality of the stitching as well. Kind of look at that stitch line across there. Absolutely beautiful. And again, we're talking about probably about 8 ounces of leather, saddle grade leather, not an easy peasy sew off. Again, this machine would not have been able to handle this when it was delivered from the eBay seller that my customer bought it from. There's no way. So I'm going to throw this over a pile. Look at this crazy pile over here. This is what this Schmetz needle has already done on camera and off camera. Now, most people would consider this to be enough to prove that the machine is ready to be shipped back to Minnesota, or to be shipped to Minnesota, I should say. But this is not good enough for us. We're going to go further than this. What should we stitch next? Let's see if anybody wants to chime in this time. See if anyone wants to chime in. We've got Naugahyde. That's this stuff right here, the fake leather. We've got this vinyl paper in that really cool color that Susie talked about. The purple colored vinyl paper as well. Protected full grain leather. Compressed felt. Protected full grain leather. Yeah, these are both protected full grain leather. I want to say. No. See how materials can look the same when you're looking at them quickly? This is protected full grain leather. This is bubblegum material. This is bubblegum material over here, the stretchy stuff that I presented multiple times on this channel. Bubblegum material, compressed felt, protected full grain leather.
100% cotton back over here with a stiffener, gunny sack material, acrylic fiber, 100% denim way over here, 100% denim way down there. And that's about it. So if anyone wants to chime in and suggest what we should sew next, awning material looks gorgeous. So Emma wants to see awning material. We'll give that a go, no problem. But I will let you know it'll be a little bit hard to see the stitching. If you look at the busyness of this material, we'll have to really, really get the right angle to see the stitching once we've gone through it. And I will, I'll see if I can turn. Let's see, we're dealing with a white thread. We're dealing with a white thread, so maybe this darker side will be the thing to point out. I think so. So we'll go through 2 layers of this awning material. Again, this is referred to as acrylic fiber. And acrylic fiber, I call it almost the equivalent of, it's kind of it's a Kevlar style material, the way it's woven and the way it's built. It's so crazy strong. It's just unbelievable, you know, and no one's surprised by that. I mean, if you're working with awning material, it's got to be super crazy strong, right? Because of the wind and all the other elements that it gets exposed to. So let's get this into place. We'll see if we can buzz down this. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to see the stitching on it okay. I'm hoping. And I'm going to get smart this time and grab a couple of my little clips so I can try to keep this together more easily. And some of you might have other tricks on keeping the material together and keeping it from slipping. By all means, share that if you know other ways to do it. And I'll have one of the moderators, because I'm not looking at the live chat right now, I'll have one of the moderators pass that information along to me, because I always like improving the way we're doing things and finding more effective ways to present the machines. So I would love to learn from you if you have that knowledge. Okay. Real quick, I got to wipe off my glasses so I can see a little bit better. Just amazing how dirty glasses get doing nothing but sitting, isn't it? So before I launch into this acrylic fiber, let me give you another trivia question. We talked about the 401A coming out in 1956. Just a year before this machine, the 301A, went out of production. The 301A again went out of production in 1957. There were 2 other machines introduced by Singer that also are slant-o-matic machines. In other words, their needle bar is slanted just like this 301's. And those 2 machines were introduced in 1958. One of them came out of production in 1960. The other one stayed in production until 1963. Does anyone know what those 2 models are by Singer? Again, 2 more slant-o-matic machines that were part of that slant-o-matic family. One came out in 1958 and was in production until 1960, so about 2 years. The other one came out in the same year, 1958, but it was in production much longer until 1963. Any guesses as to what those 2 machines are? And if you say them in order, that would be really, really impressive. So the first one, again, came out in 1958, was produced until 1960. The other one came out in 1958 and was produced until 1963. What are those 2 slant-o-matic models that share a lot of the same attributes as this machine that we're live streaming today? And while you're guessing that and being courageous and stepping out there and saying, yeah, I don't care. I don't care if I get it wrong. I don't care, because this is a safe place. This is a safe place. If I miss it and we ever had some, I'll just say it, if we ever had some joker in the live stream and someone typed something in as far as an answer and it was the wrong answer, and that joker, male or female, doesn't matter, started making fun or criticizing or ridiculing that individual that was courageous enough to venture a guess, I can guarantee that one of my moderators is going to go after them. one of my moderators is going to go after them and throw them either in a 200-second timeout or delete their comment or do something else, because they're always watching. And they want this to be a family-friendly place where people cannot be afraid to step out and to venture a guess without the fear of getting ridiculed or criticized. So be courageous. If you want to guess what those two Slant-O-Matic models are, I would love to entertain whatever guesses you want to throw out. Again, the first model came out in 1958, was made until 1960. The second model came out in the same year, 1958, but they kept it in production much longer until 1963. What two models are those from the same Slant-O-Matic family as Bob's machine here that we're live streaming today? Emma, great answer, great guess. You're 50% right. And Susie is also 50% right. So part of your answers are right, part of your answers are wrong. So let me see if I can get down this acrylic fiber, see if anyone else wants to venture a guess. Again, we're a very friendly group. We're not going to judge you. We're not going to criticize you if you get it wrong. All right, acrylic fiber, 2 layers of this stuff, wicked man-made material that's used to make awnings. Here we go. Now listen to this machine work. To give you an idea of how difficult this stuff is, listen to that. It didn't even make that sound of working that hard when it was going through some of the leather that we sewed. But this acrylic fiber is wicked stuff. Yes, it is. Wicked stuff. And again, if anyone wants to reach out, I'll be happy to send a sample of this to you as well. Oh, wow. Interesting development here. Interesting development. I'll show this to you in just a second. So again, to give you an idea of the difficulty of this acrylic fiber, we were able to execute and get a decent looking top stitch. I'm going to do my best to kind of show it to you. I didn't do such a great job in sewing straight, but that's pretty typical for me. Let me get that sew off holder. Where did I put it? Here it is. So this acrylic fiber is really tricky stuff to sew. And this is our top stitch that we're looking at first, our top stitch right here. I'm going to kind of go across as best as I can. The camera may get confused because of the background of this material. The pattern design is really tricky for a camera to try to focus on it. Overall, it's doing pretty well, actually. So on some of the stitches, you'll notice that they have a slight tilt to them, like this one right here. It's got a slight tilt up to the right. That's an indication that there's not enough pressure pulling down to straighten that stitch line out. When you get a tilted stitch like that, it's either that the needle is not inserted correctly. In other words, you inserted the needle with the eye of the needle tilted to the rear or to the front just slightly. So as the needle is sweeping down, you're not getting that needle in perfect alignment. So these stitches will sometimes appear a little bit tilted. That's not the case in this instance, because the socket on the 301A only allows us to put that needle in one way, and it goes into that socket just as it should. So this is a product of tension. That bobbin case is not pulling down hard enough to define that stitch and to keep that stitch in perfect alignment. And then it gets into a rhythm right around over here. It gets into a rhythm over here, and I don't know. I'm looking at where the thread is starting. Hold on a second. I already cut the thread, so I can't see. This could be at the very beginning of the launch. It got into a really nice rhythm of having a very nice even stitch. You can see this stitch line up until right about there. The balance on this top stitch is just as it should be. Page 34 plus. Quite a lovely stitch. Let me see if I can get the camera to focus on that. Again, this material really messes around with the camera. It makes it very, very difficult. Let me put it vertical, see if that makes it any easier. Sometimes it does, sometimes it didn't. Sometimes it doesn't. I think I did this with Adam's machine yesterday, and some of the stitching was a little bit easier to see when you did it vertical. I don't think that's going to be the case with this material. Yeah. I'm looking at the screen. Yeah, you can kind of see it. So from that point right there until the top, we had some good stitch definition. We had a good stitch product. I think it's going to be better horizontal with this material, this type of material. Again, coming back over here, you can see from right around there to the end, we had some really nice stitch tension balance on this top stitch. There we go. Now I got the camera pointed right. But then as it went across this material, we ran into some issues right about there where it was having trouble maintaining stitch tension for this top stitch. That bobbin case is working really hard, but this is a real tricky material. And then near the end over here, waiting to see if the camera can focus here. There we go. Near the end over here, it came back into proper form again. So when you're dealing with certain material types like acrylic fiber, especially 2 layers of this stuff, it can goof around with maintaining proper tension as it goes across. It's working really, really hard over here. Does an excellent job with this stitch line starting out, going across. But then we ran into some issues right about there. So I love to sew this stuff. I was the first one that I know of to introduce this stuff as far as sewing it. But now when we turn it over and we look at the lock stitch, we encounter even more challenges. I should say not more, I should say similar challenges. We start out real solid on this side over here. This is our lock stitch. Start out really solid as far as the definition of that stitch. Really, really a lovely lock stitch. There it is. Raise the camera up a little bit higher, see if that helps. Yep, there we go. Little bit of an issue right there. Comes back into line. A little bit more of an issue right there with this acrylic fiber. So we could battle this for a while. We could battle this material in trying to get the right tension balance between the upper tension right here, and we might even have to do some fine tuning on the bobbin case down below as well if we were going to be sewing acrylic fiber all day long. Thank goodness we're not going to be sewing acrylic fiber all day long. And most of the time when they are commercially stitching this stuff, they don't use a straight stitch. They use a zigzag, because that zigzag allows a little bit more flex. It allows that material to stretch just a little bit so it doesn't tear or break, instead of using a straight stitch. So ideally, when you're stitching this stuff, a zigzag is going to present a lot better stitch product. And if you're stitching this stuff together to actually use it as an awning, you're going to get a lot better result, So we could goof around with this for a while, but we're not going to. But at least we got through it, and you could hear that machine working hard to try to get through this acrylic fiber. It's a very, very tough material to sew. All right, any input? Oh, I should go back to the question, shouldn't I? Back to the question. So what machine was introduced in 1958 and went out of production in 1960? It was none other than, and if one of the moderators would type this into the live chat so that it's in there, that would be great. But the machine that came into production in 1958 and ended production in 1960 was the 403A. The 403A. The machine that came into production in the same year, 1958, and went out of production in 1963, so it ran in production a lot longer than the other model, was the straight stitch only Slant-O-Matic, the Singer 404. The Singer 404. So again, the 403A, 1958 to 1960, the 404, 1958 to 1963. I don't know if is Emma still there? Emma and Susie? If one of you ladies would type that in, that would be great. Oh, good question. Good question. So Four Oaks Living, also from Wisconsin. Oh, and thank you to Susie. 404 straight stitch only, 1958 to 1963. And the other machine, Susie, was the 403A, which is 1958 to 1960. 1958 to 1960, the 403A. So to answer Four Oaks Living question, with this acrylic fiber, in order to try to get a balance on this, number one, we wouldn't be using a universal needle. We would be using a needle that's appropriate for woven type fabrics. So the point, the scarf, the shaft, the placement of the eye of the needle are all going to be a little bit different than the needle we're using right now. And there are specific needles at Jo-Ann Fabrics, at Walmart and other retailers like that are designed specifically for woven materials. That's the type of needle you would want to choose for acrylic fiber, not a universalist needle like we're using. As far as adjusting the tension, as we're looking at the material right now where we have an underserved top stitch, but we also have an underserved lock stitch, we would want to take that bobbin case out, and there's 2 set screws on a featherweight bobbin. Let me actually grab a featherweight bobbin case and show it to you. If I can find what that is. So to answer my fellow Wisconsinites' question, in order to try to get the tension right on acrylic fiber like this, if we were going to be sewing this a lot, because right now we don't just have one side that's underserved, we have both sides, because this material is real tricky to sew with. So we would take our bobbin case out, and on a featherweight style or a 301, 301A bobbin case, there's going to be two screws. One is going to be over here on this side. I always double check them to make sure they're tight. This is going to be your set screw right here on this side. That's going to hold this band in place. Again, when the thread is drawn through, it's drawn through this little slat right here. It's brought over here, and then it's brought right through to there. Depending on the set point on this, there's going to be a certain level of tension on it. Right now, we don't have enough to sew this acrylic fiber. So we would take this second screw right here, which is our adjuster screw, and we would turn it. And again, kind of like the calibration of the upper tension I have right now, a little does a lot. A little does a lot. So you don't want to make huge movements. You would slide your little screwdriver in, and you would take it in small increments, testing it, turning it clockwise. So you can see I had that almost at the 12 o'clock position. I just turned it to about the 1 o'clock position. We would reinsert it again. And again, when you don't get confused, because you're kind of probably taking that bobbin in and out. When you put that bobbin back in, make sure that you have the thread over the top so that this is going to turn clockwise, okay? But we made that little adjustment with this screw right here, and we took it from about the 12 o'clock position to the 1 o'clock position, which is going to increase that pull down factor to give us better definition on this top stitch. We would then do a sew off and see what impact we brought. And then we would go back if we needed to. In other words, if we saw that this lock stitch on the bottom was even weaker than it was originally, then we would also look at making adjustment to our upper tension as well. In a lot of instances, with most sew-off materials, if you're using the appropriate needle, with most sew-off materials, you're going to be able to manage the tension factor just by making adjustments to this upper tension. If your lock stitch is weak, you're going to increase the upper tension. If your top stitch is weak, but your lock stitch looks like it's nicely defined, maybe even a little bit overly defined, then you're going to back off this upper tension so that that top stitch can come into better form and be more poppy. So usually this will allow you to control that factor very nicely. But when you're dealing with a tricky material like this acrylic fiber, you may have to make adjustments to the bobbin case like I just showed you, of bumping it up a little bit by turning it just a little bit clockwise, and then also might have to make an adjustment to your upper tension at the same time. But it really is a labor of love, and it's a matter of understanding what you need to do rather than us going through 4 or 5 or 6 sew-offs and taking this in and taking it out and taking it in and taking it out and making adjustments where we could finally get this just as it should be. Along with changing the needle. I wouldn't use a universal needle on acrylic fiber usually. You would want to use a needle that's designed for woven materials. So hopefully that answers my friend's question from Wisconsin. Even in spite of the challenges that this material presented, this machine is running so well right now that it still was able to, for a limited length of time, using a less than ideal needle and without making drastic adjustments, it was able to deliver some beautiful stitching for the top stitch and the lock stitch. It just couldn't run the race and carry it all the way through this tricky material. So that's where making appropriate adjustments to the bobbin case and or the upper tension are going to come into play. I hope I answered your question. But just keep in mind, whenever you're battling tension with any material, always keep in mind that that bobbin case is pulling down, that upper tension is pulling up. So if you have a stitch on the bottom that's underserved, it's either the point, especially if you're just getting to know this machine. What I found sometimes is that someone working with a bobbin case like this that will work again in this 301A, a 301 or a featherweight, what I find sometimes is that someone prior to me getting the machine has taken this adjustment screw and they've turned it all the way down. They've turned this all the way down. They cranked it all the way down, almost as if they pulled it out and they thought, okay, this screw is tight. Okay, that's good. This screw is not tight. I need to tighten this screw up. And they don't realize by tightening it up, they all of a sudden are ratcheting up that tension so high that in order to countermand it, because they've tightened this all the way down and it's going to be really super defining that top stitch, now all of a sudden we need to take this upper tension and crank this all the way up to try to get these two in balance again. So whenever you get a new machine, especially, make sure that someone hasn't tightened that adjustment screw all the way down, or the opposite, that they've turned it all the way out, kind of like I would do if I were going to be sewing with this type of thread. And I explained this a little bit earlier in the live stream. If I were going to be sewing with this sulky 100% rayon thread, if I were going to be sewing with this sulky 100% rayon thread, I would have to back out the tension screw on this bobbin case significantly. I would have to turn it counterclockwise and turn it counterclockwise and turn it counterclockwise in order to get a balance between what the bobbin case is doing and what this upper tension unit is going to be doing. But again, this is a specialty thread that's 100% rayon. And depending on the thread you're working with, we're working with a dual duty XP thread today, just a basic, run of the mill type thread. I shouldn't say that because I'm going to get a nasty note either from Joann's or I'm going to get a nasty note from Coates and Clark
that makes this dual duty XP thread. It's a very nice thread. Let me clarify that. It's a very nice thread, but it's not quite in the Gutermann range or in the, what is the other one? Aerofill, right? Aerofill makes a real fine specialty type thread line as well. So just take that into account. That tug of war will sometimes be impacted dramatically by the thread you're working with, the needle you're using, and by all means, if you're working with a tricky material like an acrylic fiber awning type material as well. So I hope I did a good job of explaining it. If I bumbled through it fairly well, would you be so kind as to give a thumbs up or a smiley face or something, especially my friend from Wisconsin, the Four Oaks Living friend. I don't know what their real name is. It might be a gentleman or a lady. I have no idea. But anyway, hopefully that helps. Okay, what should we sew next? Since we're battling things a little bit with that acrylic fiber, maybe we should consider sewing this Naugahyde material. This can be a nasty, tricky material to sew as well with all of that vinyl that's engineered into it. But I'll let you folks, if you want to have a swing at picking our next sew off, I think that'd be totally cool. So we got this Naugahyde. It's a man-made fake leather. Got this vinyl paper, protected full grain leather, compressed felt, bubblegum material, gunny sack material, which it's going to be really hard for us to see a straight stitch on this. But if someone wants me just to stitch down it, I can certainly do that. And then we have denim. Got 100% denim all the way down here. Could probably move the denim over here, couldn't I? At the front of the line. Because a lot of folks are going to be using a 301A or a 301 or a featherweight, like the featherweight that I prepared for Thalia out in Missouri. I'm guessing that she sews denim as well when she's doing different quilting type projects. So what do you guys think? I'm going to look at the chat. Denim. Susie is saying denim. Emma is saying denim. Yeah, you know what? And don't be intimidated by adjusting bobbin case tension. Don't be intimidated by it. Just realize that a little is a lot. So the whole thing when you're adjusting bobbin tension is you have to take it in very small steps. Kind of like I showed you, taking it from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock and not being wild about cranking it too far. Because especially on the bobbin case, it's going to have a very huge impact in small increments. And you don't want to overdo it because then you'll take away too much from the lock stitch. You got to keep that balance factor in mind. All right, let's do some denim. It looks like we got a vote of denim, so let's do some denim. And again, this machine is going to be used by Bill Bradley's wife and Bill Bradley's daughter primarily. Although I wouldn't be surprised if Bill sits down to it too. You never know, right? So what should we try? Let's get some additional input. We've got this heavy grade denim. It's not that stretchy denim that a lot of people will buy now in jeans. This is the old fashioned denim that would have been, back in the day. So it's just good old solid denim. I've got 2 layers right now folded like this. Should I go with 4 layers? Just fold it over like this? Or should I be incredibly adventurous? And should I do 6 layers, folding it like this and then like this, which would be 6 layers of heavy grade denim. And I'm hoping I can get this underneath the presser foot and get it to feed properly with 6 layers if someone votes for 6. Emma's a former Brooklyn girl, and she always is like, go big or go home. Go big. Go big or go home. Say it with a Brooklyn accent. Go big or go home, okay? Go big or go home, all right? Yeah, do it. Do it. So I knew Emma was going to say 6 right away. Any other votes? Any other votes other than 6?
Yeah, a lot of people did mending and just general sewing with denim all the time, didn't they? It was one of those materials that was durable, and especially when families were managing budgets very carefully, you could get a lot of runtime out of a pair of jeans, and it oftentimes would start out with the eldest and then go to the middle child and then go to the youngest child, and they would keep on mending that denim over and over and over again with patches and other tactics to try to get as much runtime as they could out of that denim, couldn't they? So here's what I'll do. Let's go ahead and do 6 layers like Emma suggested. I'm going to fold it right there, get us up to 4, and then I'm going to fold it one more time to get us all the way up to 6. And like I said, I'm just hoping we can get this underneath the presser foot. I think we'll be good. Yeah, it's not snug, but it's getting close to the clearance level for this Slant-O-Matic 301A, getting really, really close. So let me get that into position, get that presser foot down. I'm not going to increase the presser foot pressure any higher. It's already cranked up pretty high. Put on one of these little clips to try to hedge my bed and see if I can get these to sew reasonably straight. Get this in place as well. Down here. We're going to go clip crazy here. I'm going to go with 3 clips instead of just 2. I'm also going to watch our time a little bit. We've got so many other sew-offs to do, but we also are running a little bit longer right now, about 2.5 hours, and to try to wrap things up in the next, 20 to 30 minutes if possible. Bring that back a little bit further. All right, and I'm going to do this without a hand start. Matter of fact, I'm going to back up the camera just a little bit. Back the camera up a little bit further. Actually show you across the machine. But I want to include the material too. I just don't want to bump around this cord too much or I'm going to disconnect this and then our live stream will be over early. Okay, kind of like that. We'll do that sort of thing. What I am going to do though to set us up for success, I talk about this a lot. Right now our take-up arm is about middle of the way. I'm going to bring that all the way up. And it's just on the downstroke. See that? Just on the downstroke. That's going to free up the mechanics of the machine. So we're going to have the strongest and the most decisive positive launch that we can possibly get sewing through this much denim. Just going to adjust this one more time, a little bit further back. There we go. All right, let's give this a go. I've shown this shot specifically because I want to give you the opportunity to see that I'm not cheating. I'm not going to give it a hand start over here. We're just going to launch into this and hope that my work on the machine and my servicing of the motor and everything has given it enough of those 0.53 amps that we're going to be able to get through this very easily. All right, so let's do this. Let's do this. 6 layers of heavy grade denim. Thanks to Emma from Brooklyn saying, just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Do the 6 layers. Just get it done. Get it done. Goodness sakes. Oh, but like a drama queen, Scott. You're a drama queen. Just sew through the material. Get it done. Get it done. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'll do that right now. Okay, here we go. 6 layers of denim. And you can see when it hit that denim, there was just a tiny little bit of pause. Just a tiny little bit of pause on the part of this machine. Of course, granted, the needle might be getting a little bit dull at this point, considering all that we've sewn. Again, if you joined the live stream a little bit late, on this needle, let me try to group all this together real quick to show you. Most of you are probably visual like I am. So as you look at what we've already, I'm trying to grab all of this to show you what this needle has already done. And a lot of this is leather as well. Almost there, getting close. So already what this needle has already sewn, but again, I love Schmetz needles for that very reason. This is what off camera and on camera, this Schmetz needle has already sewn. So if right now it hits that 6 layers of denim and it's like, hold on a second, buddy, I'm getting a little bit tired here. I'm getting a little bit tired. I'm getting just a little bit tired. It's because this Schmetz needle in Bill's machine right now has already done all of this on camera and off. A lot of this we did on camera just now, but some of this I did off camera as well, getting ready for this live stream, including this this satin type material with this vinyl paper backing. So needles have to be changed when they have to be changed, but we're going to try to get through the rest of this live stream using the same needle that's already done all of this. But first of all, let's look at this stitching. I'm seeing some pretty good balance between these two, actually. I'm seeing some pretty good balance. There may be a little bit of adjusting that we would have to do if we were going to be sewing a ton of this heavy grade denim, especially 6 layers of it. But all in all, we're getting some good balance. Grab my stitch off holder. And we'll look at this top stitch first. I'm just double checking. Yep, that's our top stitch. I would probably make a slight adjustment to give this a little more poppiness. It's actually pretty good. I would say it's actually pretty solid. But I always look to make things better. You know what I mean? Always want to make things better. So this is our top stitch for this genuine heavy duty blah, blah, blah denim. 6 layers of it. Go across and kind of look at these stitches. I'm seeing some really, really nice stitching. I don't know about what you can see through the camera, and I'm doing my best to keep it steady. I really am. So that is our top stitch. And as I turn this to the side a little bit, look at the thickness of what 6 layers of denim looks like. See, when I come down like that, you can even see the stitching a little bit better, can't you? As I kind of tilt it. And we can look at the edge of that stitching. You can see the clarity of that stitching even with greater definition. Really quite lovely top stitch. And again, through 6 layers of denim, we flip it over. Let's take a look at that lock stitch. I'm going to kind of flip it this way. There we go. Take a look at lock stitch and see what we think of that. Again, a lock stitch is always going to be tougher for a sewing machine to define because it has to sweep down with the needle, then it has to pull that thread all the way back through that material. So it makes that task a lot more difficult, doesn't it? But I'm also seeing some gorgeous lock stitching as well. Let's go across and look at them. And denim inevitably will shift a little bit. So this is kind of puckered down a little bit on this edge. I'm trying to push it up a little bit and change the angle of the camera so you can see that stitching more clearly. Waiting for the camera to catch up a little bit here. Let me do something else real quick to see if this helps. I think it was Christine or Emma or somebody that had suggested this. Let me put this little white stiffener behind there, see if that helps us a little bit as well.
Yeah, that might be helping us a little bit. See, we get on the end over there, I have to kind of drop the camera down and kind of give you a different angle to try to see that stitching, because it kind of puckers over. You're dealing with 6 layers of denim. It kind of puckers over a little bit. Well, folks, I'm not going to belabor the point. I think all in all, considering we're dealing with a needle that's starting to tire after all of the sewing I showed you we already did on this needle, we've got a very, very solid lock stitch. Could we fine tune it just a little bit more? Could we use a denim needle instead of using a universal needle and get even better stitch definition? I think we absolutely can do that. And we could do that very easily. We could do that very easily. But we laid down some definite page 34 stitching with this lock stitch and also with this top stitch as well. Got some really, really lovely stitching out of these 6 layers of heavy grade denim. So I'm going to move this to the side into our sew off pile, which is over here. It actually toppled over. It's so big. It actually toppled over. It's like, I don't think so. I don't think so. You could try to throw it on top, but I don't think it's going to work. I don't think, give it a try, but yeah, it's not. Yeah, there it goes. Put that, yeah, there we go. Got it. Look at that. It's like a sandwich. We got a sew off sandwich right there, all on this one needle. Why do I love Schmetz needles? There you go, right there. Why do I try to use Schmetz needles almost exclusively? There you go, right there. Right there. Yeah. I don't do a good Brooklyn accent. I've got a number of customers out in New York, and Emma's from Brooklyn as well. Bill is from Brooklyn. They're probably going to critique my Brooklyn accent. It's not very good. It's not very good. But I'm trying. Okay, so these are the sew-offs that we have left. We can wrap this up anytime. I think we've run this machine through the paces. I'll be honest with you. I think we've run this machine through the paces, but you know what? I want your input. I value and respect your input. So if you say, Scott, we got to try that Naugahyde stuff. We got to try this Naugahyde stuff. We got to do some more vinyl paper. Scott, do some of this protected full grain leather. Scott, I love bubblegum material. You got to sew the bubblegum material. You got to sew the bubblegum material. No. Do the compressed felt. I love seeing that compressed felt getting sewed. Scott, we haven't done any cotton. Do the cotton back there. Do some cotton material with that stiffener stuff. I love gunny sacks. You got to sew the gunny sack material, Scott. You got to do it. Do it. So that's the kind of input I'm looking for right now from all of you. So that's the kind of input. So if anyone has any input, please chime in. We'll do 2 or 3 more stitch offs and we'll wrap up this live stream. Any input? Otherwise, I'm just going to launch forward. I'm going to grab some of this Naugahyde stuff. And I'm not even going to mess around. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to move right into 2 layers of this stuff. It's going to move right into this Naugahyde material. We'll do 2 layers of it. And I'm going to face it the same way with the grain, because I've had issues with this Naugahyde material before, where if I try to do it like this, like the leather stuff, the leather has a little bit more of a friction surface. It bites those feed dogs a little bit better. This Naugahyde stuff is as slippery as snot. Sorry if anyone's offended by snot, but if you've had kids or grandkids, you know what I'm talking about, or nieces or nephews. They are the snot masters. So when I put it like this back to back, it tends to get a little bit slippery and slide. So we're going to put it facing the same way, and you'll still be able to see the stitch definition very, very nicely. 2 layers of this stuff. Let's get it into place. There we go. Presser foot is down. I'm going to get it a little bit further in, actually. There we go. And I'm going to use my clips again, just because this stuff tends to slip and slide just a little bit. Again, this is 2 layers of Naugahyde. I don't know the history of Naugahyde. If anyone, not just one of the leaders, but if anyone wants to do a quick little Google on Naugahyde, the history of Naugahyde, blah, 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 I would love to relearn what that is. I'm sure someone shared it in the past, but I don't remember what it was. So if anyone wants to share the history of Naugahyde, how they developed it, when it was used, blah, 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 go for it. I would love for that information to be added to the live stream chat. That would be cool. So 2 layers of Naugahyde being sewn on this 1953 301A that belongs to Bill Bradley from Minnesota. Again, this is going to be a belated Christmas gift. I know I'm not going to get it to him by Christmas unless he like drives to Oconto and picks it up. And it's also going to be a great machine to bring in the new year for the family as well. So let's try buzzing down this. And I'm also going to do a second stitch line, I think, on this because I haven't demonstrated it yet. I'm going to shorten that stitch line to probably 15 to 20 stitches per inch and buzz down that as well, doing that. So first of all, I'm going to get a quick drink of water. Get a quick drink of water. Also, I'll hit you with a little bit more trivia. A little bit more trivia about the Slant-O-Matic family. We talked about the 401A being made from 1956 to 1961. We talked about the 2 machines that came out in 1958, and that was the 403A that was produced until 1960, and the 404 that also came out in 1958 and was produced until 1963. Now. Oh, thank you to Emma. Thank you to Emma for putting that information in there about this Naugahyde material. I'm just going to look at it again because I don't remember all this stuff. Invented at the U.S. rubber plant in Naugatuck, Connecticut. It was the first rubber-based artificial leather ever made and the first in a series of product innovations. Thank you, Emma. Thank you. Very cool. Very, very interesting. So back to the Slant-O-Matic family. We talked about the 2 models that came out in 1958, the 403A, the 404. There were 2 other models that were introduced finally in 1961, and both of those models ran in production until 1963. So 1961 to 1963, there were 2 models introduced by Singer. And 2 of my favorite models, quite honestly. They're very cool models. Very cool models. Anyone want to type in the chat a guess as to what those models are? That would be super cool. One of them, excuse me, one of them I can tell you is commonly, actually, you know what? Correction. Both of them are commonly referred to as a Rocketeer style Slant-O-Matic. And both of them are incredibly sexy, beautiful design machines as far as the body styles of them. They're amazing contours and curves. They're incredibly curvaceous, lovely machines. So if anyone wants to venture a guess as to those 2 final machines in our Slant-O-Matic family that came out again in 1961, and both of them were produced until 1963, that would be awesome. And thank you again to Emma for making us smarter on this Naugahyde material that we're getting ready to sew. All right, let's give it a go. One thing I have to do real quick, I almost goofed up. My take-up arm is not at the highest position. I need to correct that. There we go. Makes a big difference. It really, really does. If you've ever had issues with launch, if you're not doing that, it will help considerably. All right, here we go. 2 layers of Naugahyde material that was, as Emma shared, started in Connecticut and was the first rubber-based material, artificial material, that was made to look like leather. Yeah. All right, here we go. Let's give this a go. See how that's shifting? See how that it's real slippery stuff? Even though I had it clipped together at the bottom here, they separated apart. See that? I should have put one more clip right on the end. Too late. Too late now. Too late now. All right. See that? Either three clips, or I should have spaced them out a little bit differently, shouldn't I? Beautiful stitching. Wow. Wow. You can catch an initial glimpse of that. That's our lock stitch right there. Absolutely spectacular page 34 plus stitching. And again, this is not an easy material. It's not quite as nasty as that acrylic fiber, that awning material. But with all of the vinyl in this Naugahyde material, when a 301A like this can deliver page 34 plus stitching, both with the top stitch and also with the lock stitch as well, and we'll look at this a little bit closer, that is very, very impressive. This 301A is running so well right now after Workshop Magic, running so well. We shouldn't be surprised by that, should we? Where a sew and vac will spend about 45 minutes on a sewing machine, I spend about 14 to 16 hours on a Slant-O-Matic like this. 14 to 16 hours versus 45 minutes. It makes a lot of sense to send your machine to the workshop. It truly does. It's probably one of the best investments that you could ever make for what you get for your money. And if you buy one on eBay, have that seller send it here. Have it, don't incur the cost of the shipping for them to send it to you and then discover all kinds of issues. Then you got to pay for shipping and return shipping again from the workshop. Just do it right the first time and send it here straight away. So let's look at this top stitch first. Let's look at this top stitch first. I'll try to get the camera as steady as I can. And I'll add this to the equation as well. Maybe this will help us. Put this in the back there. There we go. I'm going to pause right there and just say, wow. For this 301A to be able to deliver stitching like this on 2 layers of this Naugahyde material is downright impressive. This is a very tricky material to sew. And this machine has just done a brilliant job. Granted, I did a lot of work to get it ready for this bright stage with the bright lights and everything, but nonetheless, credit to the machine. The machine is doing a wonderful, wonderful dance for us, isn't it? A wonderful dance. Incredible stitching. What are we going to see on that lock stitch when I flip this over? Are we going to see some brilliant stitching as well? I think we will. I truly think we will. Just got to get it balanced there. Let's see how it does as far as that lock stitch. Again, the more difficult of the 2 stitches to accomplish. All right, almost there. There we go. I'm going to pause right there and just say that is some beautiful looking lock stitching as well, through a very tricky material with a very, very tired needle. And yet it's continuing to work with this machine to deliver some incredible results. Incredible results. Let me start over again. I had it lined up properly, and then I kind of shifted it, and I undid what I intended to do. So I'm waiting for the camera to decide that it's going to focus. I'm hoping it will focus. There we go. folks, this just seems like a great way to end this live stream, sewing one of the more tricky materials that I could possibly sew. We've sewed a wide field of materials already. There's our totality of stitching. Here's our totality of stitching on the top stitch again, which is just phenomenal, just amazing. See how this stuff is curling? It's starting to curl now because of that vinyl in it. But again, the totality of stitching as well with this Naugahyde, just a great way to wrap up this live stream, I think. And we've had a chance to go through a wide field of sew-offs. Let me show them to you again, just real quick. And then we'll let everybody move on with their day. And I'm so grateful to all of you. We've had folks that have had to come and go. Some folks tune into this at work as they have a lunch break, as Emma has done, and others. And I never take for granted the folks that devote their valuable time to join for these live streams. It's always a privilege and an honor to share this time with you. So let me get that in place. Let's just look again really quick at some of the sew-offs that we did both on camera and off camera. I sewed some of this satin material that you could use like on a Christmas tree skirt with this vinyl paper on the back of it just to goof around. And then I'm sending one of these with as well. We just got done sewing this Naugahyde. Let me move a little bit closer. Just got done sewing this Naugahyde. Sewed some more of this vinyl paper with that really cool blue color. And off camera, I did some of this 100% cotton, just stitching it with no stiffener. Got some really good results. This nightmarish acrylic fiber, 2 layers of this elk hide. If you missed that, you'll want to rewind and check that out, because we sewed this elk hide and laid down page 34 plus stitching on the top and on the bottom as well. About 10 ounces of leather. This stuff is like trying to pucker up a little bit there. I'll have to make 2 piles. Protected full grain leather off camera. More elk hide. More elk hide. This is all on that same needle. All on the same needle that's in the machine right now. Some of this really cool compressed, I'm blanking. Compressed felt. That's what I wanted to say. Which is a heat-treated type felt. Protected full grain leather. Saddle grade leather. 6 layers of heavy grade denim. Bubblegum material. I did this off camera. Should turn it that way so you can see the stitching since you didn't see it before. Beautiful stitching. More saddle grade leather. And then some of this nightmarish Naugahyde. I think I did this little strip. I did that off camera. See the vinyl factor there, how it curls? And that's where, when a machine like this can go through all of this sewing, and we just sewed even a longer piece of this Naugahyde, which is high in vinyl content, and delivering page 34 plus stitching, it just goes to show you how well this machine is performing right now, what a great job it's doing. And credit to me, it got a level of service that it never would have gotten at a sew and vac or at a mom and pop type sewing center. Again, 45 minutes in their shop, 14 to 16 hours in my shop. And it makes all the difference in the world, doesn't it? So thank you again. Thank you to Bill Bradley from Minnesota for having the seller on eBay send this machine here. It needed a lot. I also, when it was in the workshop as well, you may have seen this on Facebook. I also replaced the feet on the machine as well, which were totally eroded. Matter of fact, one of them was completely gone. And if you didn't know that you can replace the feet on the 301s and 301As with feet like these, they are available out there. So, don't deal with a machine that's vibrating and sitting uneven and rocking from side to side as you're trying to use it. Go on to Etsy, go on to eBay, and replace the feet on that machine so you have a nice, stable sewing surface when you're sewing. It'll make a huge difference in how that machine performs and also your own sanity. So you're not dealing with a machine that's vibrating all over the place. I got to do this real quick. I gotta I can't leave this live stream without sewing a little bit of cotton real quick. So let me just do that as you're wrapping up your conversations, meeting new friends that share your love of VSM. Let me just buzz down this cotton, and that way I can at least say, I did it. I sewed cotton. Okay. I sewed cotton. I did that off camera, but I didn't do it on this live stream. So 100% cotton. I'll just buzz down this real quick, and then we'll wrap this live stream up. Here we go. Amazing, amazing stitching. Wow. Wow. I don't know if the camera's going to be able to focus on that, but that is solid page 34 stitching. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. I had to do it, you guys. I'm sorry. I had to do it. Had to do the cotton thing. Had to do it. It's our lock stitch on the back. Equally beautiful lock stitch as well. Yeah. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Thank you again for being a part of this live stream. I know we had folks come and go and all of that. And thank you again to the moderating team, to Susie and to Emma. I certainly have other moderators as well that usually will be able to attend these whenever they can. But Susie and Emma kind of kept an eye on things today and made everyone feel welcome as well. I really am blessed greatly by these ladies and their willingness to help out. So enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. I'll turn the machine a little bit so you can see that from a side, kind of admire this beautiful machine that is now going to be heading to Minnesota. So take care, everybody. Until the next live stream. And if we don't talk beforehand, have a great Christmas holiday. Have a great New Year. And always excited to share this time with all of you. So God bless, okay? Trying to gather up all the stuff. This is all the stuff we didn't have time to sew. It's okay. Set our sew-off pile on the bed of the machine right there. Lift this up and turn it a little bit. There we go. Put that handle down, back this up a little bit. Oh, I left out my cotton one that I just did. I'll put that right there. There we go. So this is what putting a machine through the works looks like. All of this was done on this machine with that needle. Again, I'll change out the needle obviously before I ship this machine back to Minnesota to Bill Bradley. And I hope his wife and daughter, if they watch this live stream as a video, hope they realize how much of a privilege and an honor it is to prepare this machine for them. It's going to be a family machine. Mom's going to use it. Daughter's going to use it. Maybe even dad will use it. And she is set up for success, set up to do whatever they decide to sew. They're going to be able to have a lot of fun with this 301A from 1953. Again, made in Anderson, South Carolina. So take care, everybody, and have a great rest of your week. God bless.
All right, with the end of that song, which you probably could not hear, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and wish everybody a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. And the next live stream I do will probably be in the new year. I don't know if I'll get another one done before the New Year's Day. So take care. God bless. And have a great rest of your week, everybody. Take care. Bye.